North Side, or the South Side, you'll find more selection and a team that's always on your side. When you're looking for a better way to buy your next Ford, visit Anderson Ford in Lincoln, where exceptional service meets unbeatable selection.
Concrete Industries has immediate job openings for precast production laborers and maintenance technicians. Concrete Industries offers great pay, health benefits, 401k, a wellness program, holidays, and paid time off. Apply today to earn a starting pay of $21.50 per hour plus a $1,500 hiring bonus. Concrete Industries is hiring all experience levels and offers on-the-job training. Start your career today as a precast production laborer or maintenance technician. Visit concreteindustries.com.
At Jimmy John's, we don't make sandwiches. We make the sandwich of sandwiches. We use fresh veggies because we don't hate salads. We just feel bad for them. We make our sandwiches exactly how you want because you're the one who's eating it. And we bake bread all day, every day because stale bread isn't bread. It's croutons. Sandwich history is written by the victors. Good thing we have legible handwriting. Jimmy John's, the sandwich of sandwiches. Order pickup or delivery on the app.
I can't believe I just scratched that car. Find my insurance card.
Dude, what do you have in this glove box? Ew, are these socks dirty?
Forget about the socks. I need my insurance card.
Just pull it up on the State Farm mobile app.
But I can do that? Oh, hey, I can do that.
Yep, it's called service.
I can file a claim on here, too?
Yeah, it's called service.
Whoa, I can call my agent, too?
It's called service.
Call your local State Farm agent, Vinny Krikak, today at 402-474-1173.
This is the Jay Foreman Postgame Show on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Here's Coy Detmer dropping straight back in the pocket. Rifles a pass. It was tipped. It's picked off by Foreman. He's at the 15, 10, 5. He'll score!
Look to the left, and he kind of telegraphed it all the way. When the ball was tipped, Foreman's in the right spot.
The Jay Foreman Postgame Show is brought to you by Anderson Ford and Vinny Krikak of State Farm Insurance.
Here's Valenti dropping back, fires a pass, and it's intercepted by the Huskers at the 25, Jay Foreman. And Foreman takes it down to the 19-yard line of Oklahoma. Another big play by the Black Shirts.
Here are your hosts, Jay Foreman and Nick Sainert.
What up? Jay Foreman, postgame show. This is not Jay Foreman, Nick Sainert. It's Jay Foreman, Austin Norman. Obviously, the Huskers will fall, it looks like 44-22 to the Utah Utes. A little bit of, I guess, a difference of first quarter and the rest of the game, and that's kind of been I guess that's kind of been Nebraska the last, obviously 3 games for sure, and obviously at times throughout the whole season. Obviously a disappointing loss, a game where you felt like Nebraska had a really good chance to upset a top 15 team. Interim coach or new coach, newly cemented head coach, and obviously 4 NFL players, or actually 3 NFL players and 1 All-American, first-team All-American, obviously not being out there to play. Felt like there was a lot of opportunity there. At times looked like Nebraska was able or was going to be able to take care of it. But nevertheless, Utah Utes and what they've done all year to not only Nebraska, but everybody on their schedule, including when they lost. Devin Dampier and company have started to get busy, and they were on time and on target, and they were proved to be the better team today. And so you would like to go into the offseason with obviously a win, more positivity, and obviously lead to the rest of the 2026 class. And obviously that includes the portal class that starts open. It's open now, but officially on Friday. Both guys leaving Nebraska and guys hopefully coming into Nebraska. You would like to be able to take a positive victory against the top 15 team into recruiting season. But, nevertheless, obviously Utah Utes proved to be more than a game opponent. They when they woke up, they got going pretty good, and that's why they averaged, I think, 42, 43 points a game.
Yeah, good offense, talented offense. Maybe not as good as Nebraska made it look, but Utah had its advantages and took full advantage of them really from the middle of the first quarter on. Nebraska got that stop there toward the middle end of the first quarter, wasn't able to do anything with it, wasn't able to move the ball from there, went 3 and out. And Jay, that to me was an early turning point in this game. It's hard to have, the moment in the first quarter. 4th and 2, Nebraska decides to punt from its own territory. instead of going for it. I get it's early in the game. The way your offense had been moving. Okay, one possession doesn't kill you. I didn't love the decision to punt it, even if it's probably defensible. But from that point, a 31 or 37 nothing run.
Yeah, at one
for
point
Utah.
It was 24 nothing.
And then they got those two more touchdowns. So 37 nothing run, and it was a 24, maybe a 31 nothing run before Nebraska got its next first down.
Yeah,
and Nebraska went 30 minutes of game time, not just 30 minutes of real time. 30 minutes of
that's like
game
an hour.
time.
That's an hour and a half of real time
between first downs.
Yeah, between first downs, and so Utah made some adjustments defensively. Nebraska struggled defensively against Utah Utes in their quarterback run game. And then they kind of came in with like their hybrid quarterback or Wildcat set with Dampier and Ficklin, and it gave them a lot of problems. Conventional run game gave them some problems. The shift in motions gave them some problems. And so, look, where Nebraska is very disappointing, obviously, no doubt about that. But it's a good teaching tape for the guys that potentially or hopefully coming back next year. It's like, look, this is what we put on tape. This is what we can learn from. I mean, I think a lot of it is self-inflicted wounds, and that's been all year. When you think about after the Penn State game, Matt Rule says that, they had the first 8 plays, you had mental errors. And these are base defenses going against the base offense. Well, that boils over into some of the guys, the majority of guys that are playing, going against a team that will give you the same formations but dress it up in a different variety. And you have to be able to communicate, but then communicate and then go out there and play. Where Nebraska was communicating, and then when the play started, they were a step or two behind. Well, you're a step or two behind against Utah. Now that's how you end up with 44-22 into the ball game. And another missed opportunity, because I don't think for the most part they got a physical. It was more out executed. And then obviously the mental advantage of Utah, what they had once they saw blood in the water, they definitely were like some sharks and trying to go and obviously, put you to sleep.
As a reminder, 402-464-5685. If you have thoughts, Starter Heyman Jewelers text line or Honda of Lincoln hotline. Jay, let's take our first call of the night. Let's head there. Oh, nope. Caller hung up. Sorry, caller. No one in the studio, everyone. So if you don't hear anything, stay on the line. Right. We'll get to you. We'll patch you through. Let's pause 10 seconds quick for station ID, and then we'll keep the Jay Foreman postgame show rolling.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet. KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
Jay, we talked about it a little bit. I don't remember if it was yesterday or Monday on Old School. Where's the edge? What could Nebraska have learned over the last month and change from Iowa?
Yeah.
It didn't look like much. It looked in some ways like a repeat of Iowa. Nebraska starts relatively fast. You have a game, then the opponent gets things rolling. Nebraska's powerless to stop it. And maybe it's edge, maybe it's lack of playmakers. And that really, to me, Jay, is the big question that I think Nebraska needs to answer. That's really my big takeaway from this game is Utah came in favored for a reason. They covered the spread by essentially one possession. They did what, the metrics expected them to do. But when I think about this from the Nebraska perspective, you're rolling early on. Things are going well. 1 3 and out shouldn't get you down. One Utah score shouldn't get you down. Just because Utah unlocks something doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to find something else that should work, whether it's offensively or defensively. But to me, the big question in front of Nebraska for this offseason is it that Nebraska doesn't have the talent or the players to respond? They're overmatched. In the first quarter was just smoke and mirrors. Utah figured it out.
Right.
Or does Nebraska not have the mental capacity, the mental fortitude, the intestinal fortitude to figure things out?
Yeah.
Is that edge? Is it talent? Is it mentality? Is it ability? That's the question I think Nebraska needs to really face down this offseason.
Well, I think it's all of the above, and it's all, and I think the better question is, or better analysis is, what percentage is one of those subject matters?
Sure.
And it might vary per position group or what third of the team as well. And so, but more importantly, the number one thing that they need is mental, physical, and spiritual toughness. Period. And the fourth thing that comes as a byproduct of that is true organic leadership. that solves a lot of things that we maybe have seen tonight. That solves maybe the 8 plays in a row against Penn State to start the game that you don't line up right. That solves maybe the difference between allowing Iowa to really get going offensively and really being able to push back, and then the offense then taking the opportunity or multiple opportunities against Penn State and Iowa, and then obviously stay within the game, within a 1 score or a very, very small 2-score game, and then maybe getting a lead and extending a lead. And that's the difference between a really good offseason where you kind of like Fred Hoiberg, really identify what you want to be as a Husker, recruit to it, evaluate to it, and obviously develop to it, and then the rest is history. And so,
and I think you saw that from Utah.
Yes.
In a lot of ways. You saw the culmination, the growth of that program, just business as usual for them.
Just 2 years ago, they were below their standard.
Missed a bowl game.
Yeah.
They come in having lost 5 straight bowl games, their first bowl win since 2017. But Jay, I think the difference was clear even early into that fourth quarter. Utah didn't let up all game. They weren't doing anything special. They just didn't take their foot off the gas. And I think the play that most stands out to me when it comes to the edge and the toughness was when Utah smacked TJ Lateef along the sideline there. It was close. It was borderline. Could have been a flag. But when you play physical, you're the tougher team, and you don't just have to act like it, but you are about it, you can walk that line.
Yeah.
You can toe that line. You can get away with a little bit more. You can send a message, right? If Utah was just playing out the string, oh, yeah, we're up big, whatever, we'll let you walk out of bounds. So be it. That's fine. You're up by 4 possessions at that point. You're up by 30 points. But Utah didn't do that. They were still there to send a message, even though they're up by 4 possessions. Nebraska, the message it could have sent at any point in the second or third quarter was, we're hanging around.
Yeah.
We're tougher than we have been. We're more talented than we've shown. Nebraska didn't send that message. They went 3 and out, 5 possessions in a row. Not even a single first down, like we said, for 30 minutes of game time.
Yeah.
I don't care how many guys are down. To not even get a first down against a borderline, top 60 defense in the country overall.
I mean, there was a lot to be had, and that's where the most disappointing thing was you're not playing, as we see Ohio State here warming up over my left shoulder. You're not playing the best defense in the nation in Ohio State. You're not playing a formidable defense in Indiana, for sure, Indiana or Georgia or Oregon. So that's where the disappointment comes from, and that's where you have to train and push and really get out, as a senior member, whether it's a player, coach, advisor, or whatever you want to call it, to get the most out of this team. You're going to have to, it can't be rinse and repeat. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's got to be, we got to infuse new blood outside of the box that can speak this language, that can push these guys, that will not have a problem going home at night, going to bed with the full knowledge that a present-day player is very, very tender and is in his emotion for less than 24 hours by the time they wake up.
Yeah.
Because that type of confidence and that type of standard boils on to how you train, how you practice. How you practice is obviously going to show people, during the game, how you practice. So when you talk about being physical, that's just something that you're going to have to demand, push, show, prod, nurture, bring along come the winter conditioning in spring. And it has to become a way of life, because then that's second nature, like you're talking about Utah, where Nebraska walks the ball down the field. Utah comes back and scores. Nebraska walks the ball up again, and then they end up stopping him, and then obviously, punting. Well, that's the point where Utah's at a breaking point. That's why you need what you mentioned, the edge, the coaching, the intestinal fortitude, all that. That's when you get the one opening that you probably couldn't plan for, and they give it to you. You got to kill them.
Yeah, not just slap him. You got to
kill him. You got to
straight upside the head.
And that's where
didn't do it.
And that's where they lost it a little bit when they had the 14-7 lead. 3 points would have been the equivalent of 10 points, even though you only have 3 on the scoreboard. Then you were able to maybe answer the bell against them. They scored. Then we stop them. Then the next time they get the ball, we let them off the hook. Those type of situational football problems is something that where players have to really, really get in tune to, because when you're trying to get to wherever they say they want to go individually, you have to find a way to play better. And that's both individually and collectively.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not selfish at all. And
well, it's what you always say in old school: operate individually, think collectively.
Mm-hmm. And when you do that, it actually frees you up to be a better player. To take that leap, you have to have some true uncomfortable. And I'm not talking about JJ Redick and with the Lakers. I'm talking about having some really hard, uncomfortable conversations where you're questioning yourself when you drive home and questioning whether you want to go to the standard that's been put upon me by somebody that's evaluating. Both, and this is offense and defense.
And special teams, not good today either.
Yeah, I mean, and it's tough. Bowl games are tough, but if you know anything about Colorado State, they're going to come to compete. Or not Colorado State, but Utah. I'm thinking about Colorado State when they went up to Colorado a couple years ago. But when Utah, they're going to come to compete. Even though they lost their head coach, he's been there for 21 years.
Yeah,
his DNA is in that building. On every one of those football players, every one on that coaching staff.
It doesn't just leave after 10 days.
They don't even know it. Like the guys that are coaching and playing, they don't even know it because they're thinking like, okay, we lost our head coach, so we're going to just go play for our new head coach. Well, you're playing for your new head coach because he's the one that your original head coach picked, and he's a byproduct of him. So it's really a smooth transition into him. But they don't even know that because you're so fixated on what you have to do. And then when you look at Nebraska, it's just one of those things that you lose 3 games in a row, all 3 the same way. As you get on the plane and coming back, I think either tonight or tomorrow, whenever, both coaches, players, and administration, you got to figure out, okay, what have we done positive, and then what do we need to do to change the outcome of games like this?
Yeah,
and those conversations are hard, man.
Necessary
because you have to take some accountability. You have to have a tremendous amount of humility. You have to probably communicate with people that actually aren't in your either circle, but are not comfortable conversations.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to take and receive, or receive and take. And then you have to be able to step back, maybe take some notes like we have over here from the pregame show. And then you think, okay, out of those notes, how am I going to come up with a solution? That's the hardest thing to do right now where you're at, because you're in the middle ground of the whole ball of wax of the old college football playoffs or college football programs, Power 4. You're right smack into the middle. And this lawsuit, you don't want to make it down to the bottom third, because then you're thinking about, all right, you'll lose your certification in these power leagues that are coming in about 2 years.
Gear up for 2026 in winter with Baumgars, where they have everything you need to get your farm ready for the season and tools for your projects to get ready through winter. Stop by Baumgars throughout Nebraska and in Lincoln at 56th and Cornhusker Highway. Let's try our Honda of Lincoln hotline again. Nope, hung up. People, again, if you're calling in, stay on the line if you don't hear anything. No one's in the back room. We're just patching you straight through. We'll get to you when we can. With no one on the Honda of Lincoln hotline, here we go, Jay. Let's hit our Sargent Heyman Jewelers text line. Some of these go back all the way to 4 o'clock, right around halftime or early third quarter.
I'm sure it was Lincoln. I'm sure.
We have Rule improving to 2-30 versus top 25 teams. Extension was a horrendous business decision. Backwards hat Matt somehow made the defensive line worse. 64-58. We need to reconsider everything. 85-01. Can Nebraska please go back to the Big 12? Well, hey, guess what? Guess who waits for you in the Big 12? Utah waits for you in the Big 12. 24-41. Says, oh my gosh, nothing to lose. And again, Rule gets smoked. GBR since the 70s, but again, wrong staff and 6-6 type team. Go Big Red to the core, but there's that. You got some fire people calls again already. Jim says, disappointing, the lack of effort, poor tackling, getting hit in the mouth, and we roll over. Isaac, what a finish to the season. Blown out again. Not only can Nebraska not beat a top 25 team, can't even stay on the field with them. What did Nebraska learn from Minnesota, Penn State, Iowa? Nothing. Going to have to put a lot of sugar in that red Kool-Aid again to get me to drink it. Jay, not an unforeseen end to the season, but like you said, an uncomfortable one. And with every season that continues to end like this for Nebraska, 0-4 in November in year one for Matt Rule, 1-3. And now with a bowl win, right, in December of last year. And now 1-3 again in November with a bowl loss. You get to the same 7-6 record. Maybe it's something, maybe it's nothing. Mike Riley, 19-19 through 3 years. He was let go. Matt Rule with the loss now falls to 19-19 as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, everybody can, look, that's what fans do. You're going to look at stats, records, and try to predict the future. Obviously, listen, I will tell you, if you could be mad at Matt Rule and you want him to get fired, he's not going anywhere.
No.
So he's going to be head coach for the next, for the next few years and foreseeable future. So now you got to really focus on to worrying about or wondering what Nebraska's going to do to either fix some problems or lessen the negativity of some areas on the football team. That needs to be the focus right now. Obviously, you need to go back and evaluate this tape because there's a lot of guys that potentially could be those answers that I mentioned previously to the question previously, asked. Those guys need to be evaluated because as you move forward, you have to have a realistic scope or be realistic in the scope of things that understand it. The portal is not the sustainable answer. It's when you are close and you need 3 spots and you go recruit and sign a la carte. I need a defensive end. I'm going to get the best one. I need a 3-down back. I'll go get Jahmyr Gibbs. I need a 50-50 receiver and I get Dane Key, 2.0 or something. And then you know what? I'm batting down the hatches and then I'm done.
Well, the other school that embodies that right now is Texas Tech.
Texas Tech.
They get a lot of the headlines for having spent a lot of money, but you've pointed it out. They get those 3 stars that they know they can develop into reliable contributors and stars where and when they need them.
They get they really focus on the 5 stars that are guaranteed. Not guaranteed, but obviously most likely to be successful in play. And then they skip over the potential ridden 4-star recruits, and that's where a lot of those guys come from. And they focus on maybe the bottom third of 4-star recruits into the upper half of the 3-star recruits, obviously, and then you're able to create through size and opportunity, background and all that. And then that's how you have the, team, the Texas Tech that's, very, very formidable. Now, I will tell you, Texas Tech probably was at the forefront or a little bit ahead of most teams, including the Big Ten and SEC coming into this year based on what they did last year.
Yeah.
They had a pretty good record last year. I think 9-4,
8-5, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Right, 9-4 last year. So they had winning tradition. They've won some games, and they've obviously won some games that maybe they weren't supposed to. So anybody that comes in has to adapt to what they were doing. But then they magnified it by how they attacked the portal in different areas. So they built the team through the portal, but it was actually organically because if you see this on the stream, you had everything that you wanted on this piece of paper, that you have to, when you interview an Austin Orman or a Jay Foreman, they have to check, if not all the boxes, majority of the boxes. That makes everything a little bit easier, and then obviously allows your head coach to go out there and be who he wants to be in Kirk Cignetti. So for Nebraska right now, obviously the game's over. You can't go back and change it. I always say the pain of discipline is definitely worth the pain of regret. And the discipline is the hard thing to do is because discipline generally starts in the off-season program, which you have at some point, but then the discipline is doing it when you don't want to do it. Knowing you don't want to do it. Making it fun and making something out of nothing. And then when you go out there and you're getting those games in the middle of the second quarter, and I always say the 12 minutes or the 6 minutes before half, the 6 minutes after half are the most important minutes in college football right now. And I could go back and forth with you with the pros, but more importantly, where we're at right now, evaluating Nebraska Cornhuskers, that's where that discipline leads into mental toughness, spiritual toughness, and more importantly, physical toughness allows you to dominate in that 12-minute drill. And that's where they need to get very, very familiar into that 12 minutes because the 12 minutes isn't like I worked hard from January to March. I get to the point that where I'm going to be included in some of these, activities, and then I chill. So that's where they're at right now. And then obviously it starts tonight. It started tonight before the game. It's a really, really good evaluation tips on some guys that they maybe have thought have been a higher level guy. They should have no qualms going out there and attacking every single position possible that's going to make them better and not keep them in the situation that they are right now at 6-15, which is 7-6, the last 3 games on a 3-game losing streak after the UCLA game, more importantly, the Michigan game. Nothing has really looked like you wanted to or should be leading up to those games.
Middle 12 for Utah Field goal, touchdown, touchdown. Middle 12 for Nebraska, 3 and out with 1 yard, 3 and out with no yards, carry into half for 3 yards. And then if you want to give Nebraska that first drive out of halftime to give them a chance to respond to Utah, 3 plays, -3 yards, punt. Combined like 5 minutes time of possession for Nebraska across the middle 12. Utah
on 3 different possessions.
3 different possessions.
So essentially what Austin is saying, if you have 3 possessions at or under 6 minutes, you're essentially per possession probably has maybe, and is probably being lenient, 1 positive play.
Yeah.
On 3 different possessions in a 1-score game at that point in time.
And positive isn't even successful. Positive is just you move forward. You move past the line of scrimmage.
Right.
That's not even, hey, you actually did something well and kept on schedule.
Yeah, positive also is doing what Austin just said, but then also making adjustments off of what you originally did positive. But when you're caught by surprise on a change of obviously a potential change of possession as the head man in charge, you reading the cards and looking at the iPad is probably should be minimal unless it's a huge breakdown at a huge part of the game in the first 2.5 parts or 2.5 quarters of the game. Because anything after the third quarter, most of these guys, and I consider them almost pro coaches, but most of the guys are looking at the clock and seeing and looking at possessions, how we can get out of here with a win. Whereas in the pros, you're looking at it like, okay, how are you performing? Which then leads us to the very end. What can we get out of this whole season?
Mm-hmm.
And, there's not much to be said. I mean, quarterback got busy. Running back conventionally got so busy. We didn't have much pass rush or pressure. At times, I felt like we were as good or better than this Utah offense. But I think what they've done all year, they leaned on Dampier, and it was just a little bit too much.
A lot of people saying it's hard to be positive right now. Then we get a Quinn who says, on a positive note, this is a winning season. 2 in a row, something Nebraska hasn't had in a long time. My question is, if you're the head coach with the portal, what do you focus on? Spend money on a better quarterback or focus on O-line or D-line or what? We have other people saying, hey, Nebraska got outplayed in all 3 phases of the game. Came down to individual play. The quarterback play isn't close to being like that of a top shelf program. Jay, let's have the TJ Lateef conversation now.
Yeah.
The line, 15 of 28, 182 yards, touchdown, and an interception. That was through the air. On the ground, TJ Lateef credited with 13 carries for 22 yards with a touchdown there at the very end, and then a long of 16. How would you assess what you saw from TJ Lateef today?
He looked about how I thought he would look after being rusty. But I think he did way more positive than negative. I think there's some guys that could have got a little bit more separation, allowed the passes that he was throwing to be obviously more crisp. But that's just the way the game goes. And so, I think he did good enough to obviously bring back and obviously pay him enough to be in a potential truthful competition for quarterback position. I think his best days are ahead of him. I think he performed well and would have no problem if he was QB1 and obviously had to, lead. I'm looking at this NU, like where you got to really, really lead for, something bigger than you. I think he's mature enough and obviously savvy enough he can do so.
He didn't look like the solution, but he also didn't necessarily look outmatched. There were some freshman mistakes in there. I mean, the broadcast pointed out on one of the sacks, 6 guys at the line of scrimmage, only 5 offensive linemen. He either miscounted.
One of the guys is yours.
Right.
Yeah.
He must have misidentified, miscounted, whatever it was, guessed wrong, thought the guy was going to drop, didn't end up in a sack.
Yeah.
The interception, not great. A little bit of a broken play, thrown it into triple coverage to Mosey down the field. You were down big. You had to take a shot at that point. I think if the timing of that play was better, maybe it's got a chance. It didn't work, but it's not a great sign, Jay, to me that the best play Nebraska had consistently was a screen pass. Against pressure, you got to call it. You got to hit it. I think it worked out well. Mekhi Nelson, I thought, played pretty well. Mosey had his moments as well. Glad to see him get back in the game after a little hip drop tackle there. After he converted on 3rd down earlier in the game. But TJ Lateef, I'm with you, looked the way I expected. Didn't go all Superman, had his freshman moments, but I think you kind of saw the California cool. Not in a too relaxed, too casual sort of way, but in a game where everything snowballed, it didn't necessarily look like it snowballed on TJ Lateef. It just looked like, okay, yep, this just looks like a replacement level quarterback in his, fourth career start.
Yeah, that's a great assessment. I mean, I think with TJ Lateef, I mean, with him, I'm fine with where he's at. You got to think everybody's looking at the end product of Mendoza and Simpson and obviously Dante Moore. But let's not forget, remember watching Dante Moore, as mentally talented as he is, as a freshman at UCLA, was way above his head. Where it was like he needs to pull him and get him on the sideline, calm him down. And obviously there's different techniques. You do that based on because you're trying to save him from himself. And so, I mean, what do you do? Do you invest in the offense and defense line? I think you have to invest in the offensive line, but I think you have to invest in true, organic, truthful, meaningful leadership in the locker room. Guys that are willing to grind through games like this and find a way to pull out. Guys that have been through some battles and understand exactly what, the position coach or the head coach wants. And then able to implement that and police that inside the locker room and outside the locker room as well. Understanding you're playing for a bigger purpose. That allows you to really develop at a higher rate of speed. That's what Coach Wade had been talking about. And for the most part, at some point in time, for the first quarter, for sure, Nebraska was, at least in my opinion, obviously was able to uphold that. And hopefully you get it to, potentially lead to a full game and move forward.
Joe and Boulder, were you guys watching a different game than me? TJ's performance was incredibly underwhelming. Not really a threat to take off and run, hesitant and not sharp in the passing game. Joe, I'd love to know what your expectations were for TJ Lateef. If you want to say he was bad, so be it. Utah wasn't a great defense. I think I would agree with Jay's assessment that guys weren't necessarily open. I mean, a couple big-time throws to Quinn Clark late in the game. Sometimes some lanes closed up. It looked like a guy that was getting back in the swing of things. Like you said, coming off the hamstring that limited him a little bit. And again, his fourth career start. I think Husker fans have some of this impression in their head because they've seen it, Jay. Other teams, true freshman quarterbacks can come in and tear Nebraska up sometimes. We've seen that time and time again. But I don't know that I could ever say TJ Lateef was underwhelming, let alone incredibly underwhelming. He played a football game like a true freshman. He's going to have to learn from it if he wants to be the starter for next year. Some of it's on him. Some of it's on the situation. Some of it's on the guys around him. TJ Lateef was not great. TJ Lateef, I don't even know if I would say, obviously the stat line isn't good. He was pretty much exactly what I expected. He played the game.
Yeah, he hasn't changed. I think sometimes, when we played Houston Christian and Akron, and then where TJ is obviously looked really, really good against them, instead of looking at the recent history of when he played, you look at, the best times, and that's what you're supposed to do, I guess, as an evaluator. But we're talking on the radio, so we don't really need that. I think that's where you misconstrue what TJ has brought to the table. He's brought a calming force in the huddle. Somebody that goes to work every day, and I will tell you this, is being around a defense in practice. When you see some guys struggling, the last thing I'm thinking about is what Mr. McNair, in this case our owner, which would be the GM to Nebraska's associate or his head AD. I'm not worrying about what Dylan is doing. I'm worrying about what I'm going to be doing. Once I figured out the difference, it's the best way to go about business. And so, there's still more questions there. I mean, I felt like going into the game, there's not one. I'm trying to think as I'm talking. Not one player that should feel comfortable enough to feel like I've earned enough, I've played well enough, I got this, I have the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
I can't think. Maybe I would normally say Ja'Cory Barney, but I would not say it based on what happened.
It's him by default, more so than anything.
Right.
Like
I would
sure
say generally Marshall, as far as in the defense goes, but not so much. Maybe Schaefer's, but there was kind of things that I saw where you got kind of ran over by a quarterback, and so I think they have guys right on the cusp. But then those guys, if they really want to take over the team, then they got to do it, which will lead to better results when you play. I call it like opponents, a opponent that thinks, acts, and wants to be considered year in and year out a top 15 opponent. That doesn't matter if you play home or away afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get to that mentality, you got to surround yourself with people that know that mentality, because it's a different type of mentality that you need in order to go to the next level. And that's not even the NFL. I'm just talking about
the next level for Nebraska right now is 8 wins.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe 9.
The next level is
that's the next step.
Whether you have a favorable schedule or you have a schedule that's somewhat hard, and then they have their deals over there. You have to think you have to be very process oriented and not outcome based. Process leads to wins. Process leads to championships. Process leads to legacy. Process leads to long term.
Mm-hmm.
You handle the process and get out of your own way. It seems to me that Nebraska and Husker Nation would be very happy here moving forward.
2 things to get to on that. Let's pause that conversation and finish up TJ Lateef here. Our own Nick Upgrade Sainer tweeted something about this. Didn't feel like TJ Lateef was necessarily put in position to succeed consistently after the first couple of drives. Joe in Boulder says, my biggest annoyance is Holgorsen calling a pass-heavy game. Yet again, when Nelson and Mosey were averaging healthy numbers running the ball, I just don't think he can help himself. Jay, the first 2 drives is, look at this. Dana Holgorsen's back. He's a wizard. He's got Nebraska in great position. Then Nebraska goes 3 and out 5 times in a row, and that's not why you hire Dana Holgorsen.
Yeah.
You hire Dana Holgorsen to put up 45 points in a game where the other team scores 44. But it's just, to me, funny to hear, look at Dana Holgorsen. He's great. He's calling a fantastic game. And it all went out the window. I'm not saying it's unfair. I'm not saying it's off base. Sure, the magical, adjustments over orange slices at halftime. That's why you hire a professional play caller like Dana Holgorsen, is to have some of that in the back pocket. Some of it's on coaching. Some of it's on game flow. Some of it's on players. I know you're going to say that. Just execute what's called. Nebraska missed some opportunities. But back to what Nick tweeted, did you think Nebraska had a decent enough game plan around TJ Lateef to give him maybe more opportunities that he maybe missed? Or do you think the game plan was maybe a little suspect from the jump?
I mean, I think it was more along the side of that, they're helping him trying to get there. I mean, I think if you really took the bull by the horns, you would have definitely got there, because the outcome would have been different. And so the whole narrative that we're talking about right now would be in a whole different, stratosphere. So I think, for TJ Lateef, it's hard because you missed some time when you really could have got a grasp on this offense, coming off of obviously a loss where you were hurt, and then obviously, other losses, and you don't have. One thing is what people don't understand: having played in 4 games is different than I would say he started 4 games in a row.
Yeah, I mean, he played the second halves against Houston Christian and Akron. What do you get out of that?
Right,
you're thrown into emergency duty against USC, and you're the backup. You always got to be ready. And then you get UCLA. You return home, handle that moment pretty well. Second half kind of fizzled, but you did enough to win the game. And then you face 2, top 20 defenses in the sport, if not more, in Penn State and Iowa. And then you have that hammy injury kind of hampering your bowl prep.
Yeah.
Reasons and excuses.
Yeah, I mean, and they could be factual, but at the end of the day, we know the facts. Facts are that we're 7-6. We've set ourselves up to be ripe for the picking for other schools to come and try to purge, rotational players or whatever you want to call it from our roster. But then also we have to make sure that we don't do the thing that you can't do in negotiations: overextend yourself.
Yeah.
And so we've overextended our time on this first segment here in the 6 o'clock hour with the Jay Foreman after game show. We're going to take a quick break, come back. Jay Foreman, Austin Norman on the 1s and 2s. We'll be right back.
You're listening to coverage of Nebraska football in the 2025 Las Vegas Bowl on 93.7 The Ticket. Bowl game coverage is sponsored by Advanced Medical Imaging, MWR Building and Fence, Ben Bleicher of Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, and Amigos Kings Classic. This is Nebraska football bowl game coverage on 93.7 The Ticket.
There are so many realtors in Lincoln and Omaha, but don't get overwhelmed by all the no-names, plus all the different companies. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Real Estate is your go-to option, whether buying or selling residential, luxury, leasing, investment properties, or commercial property, small or large. Ben's team offers decades of experience, unbeatable customer service, and promises to fully protect your interests throughout the entire transaction. Call 402-419-6309 for all your real estate needs. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group of BHHS Ambassador Real Estate.
MWR, a local company of Lincoln, is proud to announce they are able to offer their own post-frame building packages in metal to anyone desiring a building, whether you're a contractor or a DIYer. They can install your building as always, and they offer multiple different rib profiles and loads of color options, including the wood grain metal at great competitive prices. You can inquire at mwrbuildingandfence.com or just draw your desired building and submit it in their contact us page, and they'll get back to you. Call MWR today at 402-540-8966.
If you or anyone you care about is facing a family legal matter, call Cordell and Cordell today at 1-855-GET-LEGAL or visit CordellCordell.com to schedule your consultation.
There's a lot on the line in divorce. This is Joe Cordell of Cordell & Cordell, the largest family law firm in the country, with over 35 years of helping clients navigate divorce. But being big doesn't mean less personal or less local. Our attorneys live and work in your community, and as neighbors, they understand the challenges your families face. Divorce touches all areas of your life: your home, savings, retirement, and of course, kids. So when you find yourself facing divorce, you need a partner you can count on. Visit CordellCordell.com to schedule your consultation.
If you or anyone you care about is facing divorce, contact Cordell & Cordell today. With over 100,000 clients served, we understand the challenges you're facing on a personal level. Call Cordell & Cordell today at 1-855-GET-LEGAL. That's 1-855-GET-LEGAL. 1221 N Street, Lincoln.
The holidays are here, and there's every reason to make Tipsy Tina's Taco Cantina part of your plans. Are you heading to a Nebraska basketball game? Stop at Tipsy Tina's before or after for delicious tacos. Meeting friends for drinks for an ugly sweater get-together? Enjoy Tipsy Tina's variety of margaritas. And if you're not sure about what to get for a gift this year, Tipsy Tina's gift cards are always a great idea. Don't forget about the event space at Salt next door to Tipsy Tina's, all of them located in the Haymarket at 8th and Q.
Tune into 93.7 The Ticket all week for coverage of Nebraska football's appearance in the 2025 Las Vegas Bowl. Coverage of Nebraska football's bowl game is sponsored by Advanced Medical Imaging, Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, MWR Building and Fence, and Amigos Kings Classic on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Anderson Ford in Lincoln has 2 convenient locations, which means 2 times the customer service, 2 times the inventory, and 2 times the ability to get you in the car of your dreams. Whether you visit us on the north side or the south side, you'll find more selection and a team that's always on your side. When you're looking for a better way to buy your next Ford, visit Anderson Ford in Lincoln, where exceptional service meets unbeatable selection.
I can't believe I just scratched that car. Find my insurance card.
Dude, what do you have in this glove box? Ew, are these socks dirty?
Oh, forget about the socks. I need my insurance card.
Just pull it up on the State Farm mobile app.
But I can do that? Oh, hey, I can do that.
Yep, it's called service.
I can file a claim on here too?
Yeah, it's called service.
Whoa, I can call my agent too?
It's called service.
Call your local State Farm agent, Vinny Krikak, today at 402-474-1173.
Stonebrook Exterior is your trusted partner in exterior solutions for both residential and commercial projects across Lincoln and Omaha. With over 2 decades of expertise, they deliver everything your building needs, all under one roof. From roofing and siding to gutters, wall systems, custom masonry, and metalwork, Stonebrook handles it all with precision, safety, and professionalism. Take the worry out of your exterior projects. Choose Stonebrook Exterior, where quality, safety, and service come together seamlessly. Visit StonebrookExterior.com or call 402-438-5559 to get your free quote today.
At Jimmy John's, we don't make sandwiches. We make the sandwich of sandwiches. We use fresh veggies because we don't hate salads. We just feel bad for them. We make our sandwiches exactly how you want because you're the one who's eating it. And we bake bread all day, every day because stale bread isn't bread. It's croutons. Sandwich history is written by the victors. Good thing we have legible handwriting. Jimmy John's, the sandwich of sandwiches. Order pickup or delivery on the app.
Hey there, this is Paul Scheel, owner of High Electric. I want to thank our friends and loyal customers and introduce High Electric to those looking for a new electrician. We've been serving the Lincoln and Omaha area for over 30 years, from design to install, upgrades, and repair. If you are a homeowner or a small business needing some electrical work, Call us at 402-466-6606 or check us out at hyelectric.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Back to the Jay Foreman Postgame Show on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Powered by Baumgars, Anderson Ford, and Vinny Kreekak of State Farm Insurance. Here are your hosts, Jay Foreman and Nick Sainer.
What up, Jay Foreman, Austin Orman, Jay Foreman Postgame Show. Obviously, second segment as we move towards the 7 o'clock hour. And obviously, we're taking all your texts and calls. If you call in, please stay on the line. We don't have an extra producer in the studio, so we got to pretty much do 2 or 3 things at once. Obviously, with Nebraska, I think as I was thinking about it during the break, you always look at, okay, how did the game get out of control? It was definitely the second quarter. I'm going to read you these stats right here, and then we really could just get off air after this. When you're thinking about the second quarter summary. Okay, the total points scored, 0 for Nebraska, 17 for Utah. There you go. Total yards for Nebraska, 17, 200 for Utah. In one quarter. We're just talking about the second quarter, right? Early in the game, and that involves the most important time, the 6 minutes before half, 6 minutes after, obviously, eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Rush yards, 1 for Nebraska, 62 for Utah. Passing attempts, incompletions, 2 for 4 of Nebraska for 16 yards, 9 of 12, even with the interception for Utah for 136 yards. 1 penalty each, so you're even, Steven. Then you look at third down, 0 for 3 for Nebraska, 4 or 6 for Utah. Total plays, Nebraska 10, Utah 30. Average per play, 1.7 to 7.1. Time of possession, you could just go on and on. 5.5 minutes to 9.5 minutes for Utah. When you look at those stats, that's where you lost the game. So that's the difference between motivation and discipline. That's the difference that's the difference between going into the game, expecting, knowing, and kind of have a internal plan based on if the team makes a comeback or gets a little bit of control in the game. How do we get it back? That's where Nebraska has to grow the most. Sure, better players will help athletically or whatever. Sure, you could see maybe a little bit, we need a little bit bigger guys or more depth of bigger guys on defensive line and offensive line and all that. That's great. The most important thing is that type of mentality has to go through that football program on a day-to-day basis, and it cannot change. And the only way it changes if you change it to the point that where you really crank up the intensity, really crank up the standard, really crank up the good peer pressure. If you want to get to the point where you're not playing New Year's Eve, and if you're playing New Year's Eve, it's at
6:30,
6:45, we're watching Miami and Ohio State. And sometimes it's hard to, it's easy. The answer is easy. It's hard to do because sometimes you have to get out of your own way and have some hard self-talks in order to get there. And then also you have to be willing to be challenged. And that's the hardest thing probably for this day and age of these, tender, Gen Z athletes.
Jay, I think back to one of ESPN's 30 for 30s, the class that saved Coach K. I don't know if Matt Rule's in need of saving. I don't know if Nebraska football needs a savior. We had that whole narrative with Dylan Raiola.
Actually, they do.
But
I like that.
Roll
with it.
Okay, where I'm going with that is maybe it needs to start with the head coach. Maybe it needs to start with Troy Dannon, imposing more of a sense of urgency or, donors, boosters, border regions, whoever it is. But right now it feels like what Nebraska needs is that one class, whether it's a transfer class of multi-year guys, whether it's, the guys they're bringing in here in 26, maybe it's the guys they had in 2025. Maybe it starts with TJ Lateef, guys that are in the 24, 25 classes that this offseason decide. It's been in them all along, but now when they step into leadership roles and they're playing more often, we're tired of this. It can come with urgency from the head coach and the message sprinkled down through position coaches. But, where's the Johnny Dawkins, essentially, for Nebraska? Do they have that guy, that talent with the role players, the pieces around him that have that mentality, that have that attitude, that don't necessarily need to win a national championship? Johnny Dawkins didn't do that for Duke, right? But he raised the standard.
Yeah.
he raised the level. Nebraska needs that class sooner than later. Whether it's the high school guys, the transfer portal guys are probably in this day and age, the combination thereof, that every single one of them meshes together, finds their role in the system that Nebraska wants to run and says, you know what? We're tired of this. We have to do better. If we see better being done, we amplify it. If we see worse being done, we say, no, that's not what we want to be. Whether we're freshmen or sophomores, if the upperclassmen aren't going to hold us to that standard, we're going to challenge them in a respectful way. If they're not going to hold us to that standard, you know what? We're going to take it upon ourselves to do that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% extra to raise the level that other people haven't been willing to do. That's really what it feels like Nebraska is missing, is that essentially that class that saved Coach K.
Yeah, and that was a great, I guess, example. I want to say analogy of what you need. I mean, and you talk about Dawkins and those guys, and Jay Billis, who's obviously, really, really big in the media of basketball and has a really, good and fair and honest take on how the NCAA has screwed up basketball, football, and every sport here for the foreseeable future. All that is a byproduct of being at Duke at that time and be a part of that class.
Yeah.
Why? They all had to go through the grind. They all had to believe in something that was bigger than them. They all had to take a chance on Coach K. Coach K had to take a chance on them. They also all had to be pushed into a corner with their backs against the wall. This is what we have to do. You all have to play well. I have to coach well, or none of us will be here.
Yeah.
Or at least I won't be here because they didn't have the transfer portal. That's what they need. And yes, everybody's going to look physically what we need, right? We need a 6'5", 310-pound guard and all this. No, we need that mentality. What you're saying is every day is 4th and 1.
Yeah.
Every day is important. Every meal is important. Every lift is important. Every recovery is important. And then obviously being able to challenge each other to get the best out of each other. And it's not personal, because we're not at the point where we're I guess Ohio State and like Michigan and like Penn State and even Oregon and Alabama and in Georgia, LSU, Texas, like just take those teams and whatever where they're asking you to do something and you kind of maybe push back on it or you don't do it as well. And then you're like, all right, I'm leaving. And they're like, cool, because we got 3 down the pipe coming.
Yeah.
This is at a point there where you got to challenge guys. They got to meet the challenge. Maybe they don't meet the challenge at another time. You got to bring them up to the challenge. And then therefore you're organically really, really, training their mind to be mentally tough. Like I said before, you want to get ahead of the curve. You have, unlimited number of coaches or, assets or whatever you want, analysts or consultants or whatever. You got to load up on guys that can speak the language, that can deliver the message that either you can't do as a coach or assistant coach or a coordinator, and then obviously be there for the right reasons to really amplify your I guess growth period. The reason why I say that, Austin, what's coming down the pipe, just as it sits today, like schedule wise, right? Because as much as everybody was like, oh, we get a relief next year. This is, we actually get out of our own way and walk and chew gum. We're playing Saturday night in the college football playoffs. Well, the opposite is next year.
Yeah.
3 of the teams I know for sure are in the college football playoffs. Indiana, Oregon, and Ohio State. Okay, that's 3.
You also get Washington that just won its bowl game by 28 points.
And you just got Illinois who really physically beat up a Tennessee team.
Iowa.
You got Iowa. So
every year. No fair dodging.
Ever since they played Nebraska, they look really good.
Northwestern gets back on the schedule, just hired Chip Kelly.
Okay, so just take them and just know that's going to be a dogfight, and that's just kind of in the side. So that's 6 games right there that are no joke. Those are national championship games right there coming down next year. That's why you need guys that know what it is. That's why you need guys that know what it takes. And the way that you get there is that you have to sacrifice a tremendous amount of time, personal, I guess, wants and needs, and whoever it is, I don't care if you come in the portal, you get your little week of courting. After that, it's on. We're down to business. And this is what we need you to do. This is what we're actually paying you to do. we're not paying you to perform. We're paying you to lead and perform.
Yeah.
So then, therefore, when you're Johnny Dawkins or Jay Billis or Mike Jaminski and all those guys, who, when Christian Laettner comes in, my man, Ala Abdenabi comes in, all those guys,
Bobby Hurley,
and all those guys, when
Trajan Langdon,
all those guys come in, 10, 20
Thomas
years,
Hill, Grant Hill,
right, down the road, they know exactly where it starts. That's where, when you're looking at Ohio State and you're looking at Miami, right? You're looking at Bain and all these guys. Okay, so the reason why, and I know this just because obviously my dad is obviously alum.
Yeah, is your dad locked in on postgame or locked in on the game to our left?
Oh, no, he's locked in on our left. He's been hyped since about 6 o'clock this morning. They know who they have to, quote unquote, answer to. They know that, the Jerome Browns, the Warren Sapps, those guys played there. The Ed Reeds, Ray Lewis, and those guys played there. The Michael Irvins and all that to play there. Mario Cristobal. They know who they have to answer to. Georgia knows who they have to answer to. Bama knows who they have to answer to. Ohio State definitely knows who they have to answer to. Archie Griffin's right there. All those guys are there. You know what I mean? So that's where you got to get to. And it's not putting those guys in front of the guys that are playing. It's like, okay, you're doing the job. You're helping me do my job. That's how you lessen it. That's how you do it, right? When you think about Eric Waddle, right, where he's a great, probably, I guess, he probably wasn't he's not the highest drafted Utah player because you have Lloyd a few years ago or Floyd and then Luther Ellis, but he's been he's the best player from Utah defensively that played in the NFL.
Yeah.
You know who talked to him before the game? No, it wasn't on Twitter because it's not going to come on our X or whatever. Here's Eric Weddle. Defensively.
Yeah.
He called them to the carpet how they've been playing against the run. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the part of the solution. And, obviously right now you got to look for solutions because right now you got to address the problems and you can't be part of the problem.
Let's take this one to the top of the hour, Jay, and then we'll take a couple more breaks in the 7 o'clock hour. 44-24. Let's not frost a stale cake, boys. We got beat by a team without their head coach. When does Nebraska expect more from its established coach? 44-24 says, I have a feeling TJ is going to transfer and Nebraska will be stuck with 0 scholarship players in that room. Who's to blame for that? Going back to my analogy, though, Jay, I don't know what TJ Lateef's going to do. Maybe he has a decision to make. Maybe he doesn't. But if TJ Lateef wants to be, Nebraska's equivalent of Johnny Dawkins or whoever, it's not a question in his mind. It's, hey, this is going to be my team next year. You mentioned in pregame, you're talking with Nick. You mentioned it during the week on Old School. His answer about not ducking competition. He said, I get it's part of the game. Bring it on. I plan to be here. Yeah. We'll see over the next, week, the next 3 weeks, how true that ends up being. But if TJ Lateef wants to be that guy, this isn't the time you turn and run. It's going to be uncomfortable because it has to be uncomfortable. But it's going to take that guy being the tip of the spear of that class, leading the way, that doesn't, tuck tail, that doesn't cower, that doesn't do what its former defensive coordinator said, play scared or go away from, the game plan just because you got hit in the mouth once. It's going to be uncomfortable at your point. It's going to be struggles. But if someone's going to transfer out of Nebraska, it's clear that they weren't going to be a part of the class that turned things around for Nebraska.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's a tough situation to be in because I think Nebraska, where they're at, they've came so far from being 3-9, like Henry Lutovsky, talked about, the best 3-9 team ever in college football history with like a 0-point differential, right? That's like you lied to yourself and thought you were 9-3 because you guys like, what if? But then also you're now at the point to where you're 7-6 last year, 7-6 this year, where you've shown enough growth and you've had different portal classes and upgraded your talent realistically when you look at just the skill position from Jamal Banks and Nair to Key and Hunter when healthy. Year 1 Dylan, the year 2 Dylan before he got hurt. Emmett Johnson versus I guess Emmett last year versus this year, totally different. Then you think like if you're a lot of these teams that are already more established, they're really trying to look at your roster where we can come pluck your roster. TJ Lateef is a perfect example. A young, very, very talented, a lot of potential type of quarterback that has shown flashes. And you figure if he gets inside our program with, I don't know, whatever they figure that they offer, and obviously financially it comes with it, then you're like, oh, we have a diamond in the rough. Nebraska did all the legwork. They recruited him. He learned under Dylan Raiola. He kind of got forced into action. He was able to handle himself, which he did tonight. He handled himself and shows the maturity that he can play and has a lot of potential to get better. He played through an injury. I don't still think he was probably 100%, but he showed the ability to run. We get him a whole offseason. Maybe we can get him to bite on this, apple here and get him away from Nebraska. That's where we're at. I say this, and I believe this wholeheartedly. If your record is 5-7 and like 7-5, and then I'll throw 8-4, and it depends on how you look aesthetically. And this is before the bowl game. That's the worst place to be, because that's what happens. Because most of these teams. Okay, here's an example. Alabama, when they had the running backs, but whether it was Nick Saban's last year, they were looking for a more versatile and explosive running back. They went right to Georgia Tech and got Jahmyr Gibbs.
Worked out pretty well for everybody.
Worked out for everybody. But they had an eye on a team that was a little bit lower than them to go get them.
Yeah.
What did Georgia do this year to remedy all the drops from last year?
Go get a dude that's on a team, step or two down from them, bring him to campus, problem solved, and bring.
And can catch, right? What does it do? Now it makes the offense, flow a little bit better. Allows them to play more like they want to play. And so that's where you're at. Now you got to really do a really good job of reselling your players. You're able to, I think the later transfer portal date or opening date really helps, because it gives you a month once you make the bowl game, versus if you didn't make the bowl game, then the guys are in the win, because essentially after, I know you come back to school after Thanksgiving, but you really don't. So
not mentally. You are checked out.
And if you're doing online classes, you're back at the crib.
Yeah.
So now you have it to where you're really locked in, and that December you get them to practice, negotiate with them, you can retain some more of your roster. And so that's where I think it's an advantage and not such a disadvantage. But I will tell you, people are sliding in DMs right now. I'm talking about as soon as this game got over, obviously an hour or so ago, I guarantee you players are being contacted by their agent and other agents, and obviously
by their friends and other
recruiters
places
or whatever, trying to get them to go to other places.
You mentioned aesthetics, Jay, and I wasn't sure if this was going to be worthy of bringing up, but since a couple people have brought it up on the text line, 77-73, what struck me watching the game was Rule looked unprofessional on the sidelines. Corey and Lincoln, can we talk about the backwards hat? I mean, what the heck?
Yeah.
It feels to me, Jay, from this point, maybe it's just because it didn't work. It feels to me kind of like what you've talked about with the Chiefs in last year's Super Bowl. Mahomes showing up in the green. It was Nebraska, maybe a little mentally defeated. But was this Matt Rule digging too deep for a spark, right? Oh, look at me. I'm the cool coach. I'm dug in with you guys. I'm getting back to my roots. I'm going to be a position coach, and I'm going to flip my hat around. That's going to be a rallying point. Kind of like maybe they tried to do with the blackout against USC, and it fell flat. I'm not saying it was wrong. I'm saying because Nebraska didn't pay it off, it looks really silly.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good. It's a talking point if it works out, but then it's something that people look towards why you lost when you don't play well.
Yeah, you're trying too hard to make it a thing.
Yeah, I don't think he did it on purpose. I think it's just kind of one of those things. I think he, felt like, I think according to Phil Snow, that's how he got back to his roots of being a defensive line coach for Phil Snow. He's been investing in that, and I don't think it had any outcome on it, and people can get mad at it. I mean, I understand why they brought it up. I understand why it's not a big deal, so both people can be right or both points can be right. Ultimately, it came down to execution on the field. It wasn't there. I think the biggest thing that they have to do, let's just talk defensively, since we've obviously dug into TJ Lateef, right? And I think TJ Lateef handled himself better than what the stats or everything else show. Defensively, I don't care who comes. I mean, obviously, we have our defensive coordinator and all that. The one thing that you have to do, okay, let's get the football guys first. Okay, you got that. You have got to get the fundamentals in coaching, or not coaching, fundamentals in communication down.
That did not get fixed
No,
over the course of the
because when it's great that you're trying to pre-snap communicate, but it shouldn't be like, there's an old saying in basketball or in football, play fast, not in a hurry.
Yeah.
I felt like when they started, they went from 12 personnel with a tight end displaced, and then they shifted and went to no backs with the same personnel. We were in a state of chaos.
Communicating too fast. Communicating in a hurry instead of quickly.
Or just over. I don't even know if it was over communicating or being caught by surprise. I think we were caught.
Those are both bad.
Well, I think you over communicate when you're caught by surprise, because I think you're just over communicating for the sake of over communicating. Because if you have your base rules of no backs versus 3 to a side, 4 to a side, 3 to a side, and 2 to the other side, or motion and shift, it's really not that big a deal.
You just remind everyone, hey, here's the count.
Because the way they do things, here's an example, and I know we got to go to break. So down in the red zone, Nebraska's on defense. They started out. They came out in 2-by-2 formation. They shifted the tight end over to make it 3-by-1. Brought the running back into a kind of, I call it a snake motion, kind of like when you do on like Centipede, the old video game.
Yeah.
He came down and then he motioned out. So you had 4 to one side. They ran power or quarterback power to the one receiver side. That has nothing to do with communication. That has to do with understanding the offensive philosophy and red zone defense. Where they motion to or motion from lets you know, because when they motion, say they motion or shift to the left, they're running to the right most of the time.
Because why? They created numbers.
It's illusion.
Yeah, smokescreen.
Get you confused looking over here. Oop, I'm coming to the right, because Nebraska at that time was in a zero blitz. And so when the running back went, they felt like the numbers were even. So you're right and I'm right. But when you understand the concept, okay, as a defender, as a communicator, you have a better chance of stopping that play and living for another down. You stop the play and live for another down. The pressure goes from Nebraska's defense squarely over to the Utah Utes offense.
Well, we saw even Nebraska's offense have success with that. The wheel route to Mekhi Nelson.
Right.
Get everyone going right. Luke Nelson back out to the left. Same thing they did against UCLA, or similar concept that resulted in Emmett Johnson touchdown.
It was the exact same thing, except for Emmett Johnson was on the left side when they did it and was delayed, and then just brought him from the right side. So that's what you show, obviously growth, and Dana doing something to make it an easy pitch and catch for Lateef. That's what you do to people. And it wasn't in the red zone. It was in the extended red zone. Yeah. And that's how it works out. And so when you that's where they need to have the most growth. So what I'm saying is, you got Coach Oric, he'll come in, and Coach Manning, and I assume Coach Simpson, and all that, their defensive staff, right? And they'll do, they'll coach the guys up hard. But the players have got to get to the point where you understand the game of football. That means you either got to watch more tape, you got to ask more questions, you got to be more mentally engaged in practice, and obviously in the walkthroughs and all the stuff they do. Yeah. They do in the offseason in order to remedy that. Because if you think a coach is going to be able to be out there and hold your hand against a team like Utah, where you say you want to get to, right? If your goal is to be a top 15 or plus team next year with a realistic chance of being in the conversation at the last week of the season, okay, that's what you have to do as a player and as a leadership group. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's why that's so important, because the coaches can only do so much. Right?
They can't want it for you.
And they got to do it, and everybody's got to do a better job, right? And that's fine. And I'm sure Coach Rule and those guys will tell you, we got to do a better job. We got to go recruit. You can go there, and here's what I'll say real quick before we go to break. Everybody's like, oh, we got money, we're going to go spend it. That's great. You know how many? Listen, Auburn spent a lot of money. Let's be honest. Auburn spent a lot of money. We spent a lot of money. Iowa spent a lot of money. There's probably other SEC teams that spend a lot of money. Florida spent a lot of money. Florida State spent a heck of a ton of money. North Carolina tried to penny pinch and do money ball, but they still spent a lot of money. I'm sure there's other teams Texas spent a ton of money. And Texas A&M did. Now, all these teams spend a lot of money, but they're not in the college football playoffs.
Yeah.
The majority of them I just mentioned.
Yeah.
So just because you go spend money, that's fine. You got the players. Now you got to coach them up, and they got to take what you did coaching-wise and implement it and then magnify it. What makes a really good coach? Great assistants. What makes really good play or really good like leaders or teams? Guys that guys that want to be led and are willing to lead, or willing to be led, and guys that are wanting to be led.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go execute it. Yeah. What is culture? Culture is the blueprint that the head coach and the leaders, set out, lay out, and then the players implement it, and then it goes to the assistant coaches. You make it your own. How do you recruit? It's the same thing. We want to know what a Husker is. Go recruit them. We trust you have an eye for talent. You know what a Husker is.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able. That's how you do it. It's not going to change.
Never has.
Look, if you think if you're going to go buy a team every year because you watched that movie Blue Chips from back in the day, it's not going to work. You still have to recruit high school players. You still have to develop high school players. You still got to recruit transfer portal guys, and you still have to develop them, whether it's 1 or 2, 3 years of eligibility. You have to do the work. You're not going to be able to lessen the curve at any point in time, and especially in football, because I think basketball is different. Because if you get a Kevin Durant or like a LeBron James or somebody like that to come to your school, it eliminates all that.
Yeah.
You can't do that in football. As great
well,
as
unless you're Rutgers, but.
Yes. Yeah.
But exception proves the rule.
Ace Bailey was supposed to be 6'9", and he's 6'5.5". That's right there.
Dylan Harper was that dude, though.
Yes, he was. But Ace Bailey was not the 6 foot. But when you think about football, as good as and as great as Jeremiah Smith is, he's a next generational talent. He can't do it all on his own.
Yeah.
He needed Will Howard. He needed both of those running backs. He needed the senior-led defense last year.
Yeah.
And then those seniors needed to lead the guys that has the best defense in the nation right now.
Yeah.
So those are the answers to the question or to the test. It's hard to do. I would tell you like this. Greek mythology was how I was able to have I had Dennis LeBlanc talk to me about being an academic All-American in my first year playing. It was by having taken classes like Greek mythology. Do not try to reinvent the wheel. The wheel will keep on going. Even if it's squeaky, you got to oil it up a little bit. Jay Foreman, Austin Orman, Jay Foreman Postgame Show. Quick break, and we'll be right back.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet. KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. You're listening to coverage of Nebraska football in the 2025 Las Vegas Bowl on 93.7 The Ticket. Bowl game coverage is sponsored by Advanced Medical Imaging, MWR Building and Fence, Ben Bleicher of Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, and Amigos Kings Classic. This is Nebraska football bowl game coverage on 93.7 The Ticket.
Amigos is serving up a brand new way to score the bold, fresh flavors you love with 8 affordable value meals. At $5 and $6, these meals are easy on the wallet, so treat yourself anytime. Sink into the new 3-cheese melt or taco melt, both stacked with crave-worthy flavor in every bite. There's crunchy taquito dippers, too. Perfect for dunking in Amigos' famous ranch or spicy cheese. Big flavor, small price. Value meals at Amigos.
MWR, a local company of Lincoln, is proud to announce they are able to offer their own post-frame building packages in metal to anyone desiring a building, whether you're a contractor or a DIYer. They can install your building as always, and they offer multiple different rib profiles and loads of color options, including the wood grain metal at great competitive prices. You can inquire at mwrbuildingandfence.com or just draw your desired building and submit it in their Contact Us page, and they'll get back to you. Call MWR today at 402-540-8966.
Stonebrook Exterior is your trusted partner in exterior solutions for both residential and commercial projects across Lincoln and Omaha. With over 2 decades of expertise, they deliver everything your building needs, all under one roof. From roofing and siding to gutters, wall systems, custom masonry, and metalwork, Stonebrook handles it all with precision, safety, and professionalism. Take the worry out of your exterior projects. Choose Stonebrook Exterior, where quality, safety, and service come together seamlessly. Visit StonebrookExterior.com or call 402-438-5559 to get your free quote today.
Sometimes good people make mistakes. When you find yourself in need of an attorney, call Liberty Law Group. The attorneys at Liberty Law Group will defend you in court and protect your freedom to get you the best possible outcome and the justice you deserve. Trust your freedom to Liberty Law Group, the best criminal attorneys in Nebraska and Iowa. Call them today at 877-404-5238. That's 877-404-5238. Or check them out online at libertylawgroup.com.
Husker fans know when you work together, great things happen. At Cornhusker Bank, they're more than your financial partner. With 5 locations in Lincoln and 1 in Omaha, they're your neighbors, your teammates, and your biggest fans. Whether you're saving for your first home, planning your future, or growing your business, they're right here in Nebraska to help you move forward together. Visit cornhusker.bank to learn more. Cornhusker Bank, member FDIC, doing life together.
The clock's ticking at Landmark Implement's annual inventory reduction sale. For a limited time, get 2.9% financing for 18 months, followed by 6.35% on selected equipment, including air drills, combines, planters, sprayers, 6 through 9 series tractors, and windrowers. No auction, no waiting, just direct access to the machines you want, price to move. Inventory won't last, and neither will these rates. Visit your nearest Landmark Implement or shop online at landmarkimp.com and experience the Landmark difference.
Nebraska fans, it might be a road game today, but the party is still on in downtown Lincoln. Big Ten Sports Bar is your ultimate spot to catch Nebraska football and volleyball, with every game on, every screen, all day long. Doors open bright and early at 9 a.m. Grab breakfast, stay for the game, and keep the night going with Bowl Kitchen open until midnight. Big Ten Sports Bar, downtown Lincoln's home for Nebraska sports, bands, good food, and drinks.
Anderson Ford in Lincoln has 2 convenient locations, which means 2 times the customer service, 2 times the inventory, and 2 times the ability to get you in the car of your dreams. Whether you visit us on the north side or the south side, you'll find more selection and a team that's always on your side. When you're looking for a better way to buy your next Ford, visit Anderson Ford in Lincoln, where exceptional service meets unbeatable selection.
Back to the Jay Foreman Postgame Show on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Powered by Baumgars, Anderson Ford, and Vinny Krikak of State Farm Insurance. Here are your hosts, Jay Foreman and Nick Sainert.
Jay Foreman Postgame rolls along. Austin Orman with you here, set to be joined soon by a couple of our guys that were boots on the ground in Vegas. We'll bring them in once they are settled in their hotel room. Really appreciate everyone that made it possible. We'll thank him again throughout the course of the show that made it possible to send DP, Jake, and Nick out to Vegas. Big thanks to Vinny Krikak of State Farm for helping sponsor our ticket post-game coverage. Protect yourself from the unexpected. Contact Vinny and his team for a personal price plan to take the guessing out of insurance. Call today, 402-474-1173. All right, Starter Heyman Jewelers text line this next hour belongs pretty much primarily to you. 402-464-5685. Any of your thoughts, drop them in a comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter as well. 9160. Nebraska doesn't know how to develop, not to get in touch with the current generation of players. Nebraska focuses on the past with hopes of reigniting what's been done, but Nebraska has dinosaurs in position who can't get out of their way for the upcoming generation. Something's got to change. Interesting take there for everyone that says Nebraska's too stuck in the past. Someone would fire back with, well, Nebraska's not in the past enough. Nebraska's not relying on what's worked in the past. Someone's just got to get it right, whether it means getting more in touch with the roots, whether that means developing more in-state talent, guys that you would think would maybe have some more pride in the program and what it stands for, or it means just go get the best available players and coach them up, whatever fit means to you. Whether it's getting in touch with the past, whether it's moving into the future, someone's got to have the right answer for Nebraska football. Corey and Lincoln, I want to make sure we hit on this. Which of Matt Rule's development projects is bearing fruit? I can't think of a single aspect of this team that has a higher upside than it did last year or two years ago. Citing Mike Eckler doesn't count. Well, I will have you note that Archie Wilson averaged 42 yards per kick today. And that's about the end of the bright spots for special teams. Some poor decisions or poor blocking led to Nebraska starting behind the 25-yard line, where they would get it if they would just wave their arm for the touchback. Nebraska started plenty of drives inside its own 25-yard line, had a holding penalty that backed Nebraska up to its 10-yard line. I think that was right after Nebraska had fallen behind by 10 points. Special teams certainly not a bright spot for Nebraska today. He just sat down in his hotel room. Let's go ahead and bring in one of our very own who is in Las Vegas. Back to his hotel room. Here's Jake Sorensen. Good evening to you. Thanks for hopping on Postgame. Take us through your perspective on what you saw at Allegiant Stadium here this evening in Nebraska and this afternoon out there in Vegas.
Well, where do you start? Certainly exciting first quarter. I mean, it wasn't all bad. Certainly the final score was painful. It was 40-some unanswered points at one point before they get the late touchdown. The first two drives were great. You thought, hey, this would be a football game, and then Nebraska just stopped moving the ball. Utah figured things out. Nebraska's defense continued to be bad, and that was all she wrote. So, I thought that it was a decent contingent of Nebraska fans there. I think that Utah had more, just based on what I saw. I don't have exact numbers. I think there's 38,000 plus people in the stadium. I think they said at one point, but Austin, it's just sad that we have, the schedule was just so gettable this year. And this was the toughest game you probably had. 15th ranked Utah, even though they had two of their star linemen out going to the draft, that was an opportunity. But it's just a sign of a lost year. 30 straight losses to ranked teams. 9 years since you beat a ranked team. You're talking about something that that's what MAC schools do. That can't be the case for any Power 4 school. I mean, that's bad for Vanderbilt.
It's Big school. It's going to get 3 or 4 cracks a year on average.
Right. And this year, again, Michigan was okay. They weren't a great team, and you lost at home to them. You lost at home to USC. Those are winnable games. Those are fine teams. They're good teams, but teams that if you were actually making progress in year 3 of Matt Rule, with at the time a 5-star quarterback in Raiola, you got to win those games. Win one of them. Maybe not both, but you blew chances to get these awful streaks out of the ranked teams. You're not beating them, and it's just so frustrating that they're not really close to getting over the hump. I don't feel like they're close at all, Austin.
I don't know if you heard that text from Corey and Lincoln. I'll read it for you again, and I know we have Nick in here momentarily, so we can chime in once he's settled. But here's the text on our Starter Heyman Jewelers, Jake, from Corey and Lincoln. Which of Matt Rule's development projects is bearing fruit? I can't think of a single aspect of this Nebraska program that has a higher upside than it did last year or 2 years ago. Citing Mike Eckler doesn't count. Are you in tune with that sentiment from Corey and Lincoln?
Well, yeah, it's been a reset now a couple of times. You're going to have your third defensive coordinator now in a couple of years. Holgerson has obviously had a full year, and you thought that'd go better, and it didn't go great at all this year. Had moments that was good, and then if I can't say Eckler, then yeah, it's where have we gained at? Where has Nebraska gotten better at? Where have they, since Rule took over? I think they were building towards a better culture at some points last year, and the bowl win was nice, and then this year you were 6-2 at end of October, and Northwestern was a nice win, and Cincinnati was a nice win, but that's when we talk about you have to take a leap of sorts. I don't need a monumental, huge leap going from 6 to 10. I don't need that. But I need you in November to win one of those games. It's not UCLA. It's not a game that against the worst team in the conference or the second worst team. You got to get something that you can cling to and say, this season we accomplished this. And I don't feel like they accomplished anything this year besides making a bowl game in what was a very gettable, somewhat easy schedule, all things considered.
Let's bring in a third voice here on Postgame, also in Las Vegas, Nick Sainert. Nick, same question to you. Where do you see Nebraska better after year 3, entering year 4, than it was the first year or 2 under Matt Rule? Is there an area where you think Nebraska is clearly better, or there's clearly been progress made after 3 seasons in the books?
Well, I caught the tail end. If we aren't able to reference Mike Eckler in the special teams department, I think that question becomes really tricky, because the one area maybe that you could say that it got better this year was Emmett Johnson in the running back room. But that's not going to be a piece next year, and you're back to a giant question mark. Which Mekhi Nelson ran well at times tonight, but he started off the game really, really strong. I fall in line with Jake. Jake and I kind of briefly talked about it on the Uber ride back to our hotel tonight, where it was just like it felt like this season lost juice towards the end, and I think Jake summed it up really well at in the Uber, and maybe he already talked about it here, to where you had very few opportunities come with an easy schedule or a more gettable schedule, right? You have fewer and fewer opportunities to really captivate the fan base, and few opportunities to really show the fan base that, yeah, this is heading in the right direction, not only against the teams that you're expected to beat, but maybe teams that maybe you're not favored against, but still feel like you have a fighter's chance against. And you look back at the season, and not only did Nebraska and Matt Rule struggle to captivate the fan base through those games against Michigan and USC most prominently, but they also struggled to really beat the teams that they were supposed to beat. And Minnesota's the big glaring one for me. Ever since that Minnesota game, it was bad on TV, but guys, it was so emotionally draining in person that ever since that moment, it's never felt like this season has had full support, and it's been the same since. And I don't know what the case was that Friday night. I don't know why Nebraska struggled to get up and going for Minnesota, a team that's had your number the last decade. I don't get it. I just will never understand that sentiment. And unfortunately, here we are at Nebraska. I tweeted something out after the game, Austin, about how 2026 is going to be different. And I'm getting a lot of replies in saying that different is not going to be good, in that there's fans expecting 3, 4, 5 wins next season. And then we're in a really, really interesting and tough conversation we're having to have.
Nick, let's give you the floor first, and then Jake, once Nick's done giving his thoughts, I want you to jump in. Nick, when you say 2026 is going to look different, obviously it needs to in a bunch of different ways. Where do you think Nebraska needs to look the most different, and how attainable do you think it is that Nebraska can look as different as it needs to show progress, however you define it, coming up, as soon as spring ball starts here in just a couple months?
Well, you got it's going to sound like a laundry list, Jake. I mean, it's a situation to where you got to figure out a way to get some sort of physical mentality. We always talk about it with the offensive line, but defensively, like I think tonight and this afternoon really showcased just how much improvement and room to grow this defense has. You're going to lose. You were without Deshaun Singleton tonight. You haven't had Malcolm Hartzog in a long time. But what does the other parts of the defense look like? I think we're going to get some more clarity on some situations on Friday as well once the portal opens up. Because these are all hypotheticals now. But we could talk about the defense for 30 minutes, and we could go the entire 30 minutes, Jake, and not even mention the fact that we have to. Matt Rule has to identify a quarterback that he wants in his offense. And then on top of identifying a quarterback, figure out a running back situation and figure out offensive line situations. There is a lot, and it's going to go back always back to talent identification. And I would ask the Husker fans right now, through 3 years, which is a large enough sample size in this day and age of college football, how much confidence do you have in Matt Rule and the guys that he brings in and the staff to identify the talent? And that's me asking the question without even bringing my own opinions into it.
I think there's more than that, though, Nick. I mean, talent obviously is a huge situation, huge issue for Nebraska. But I asked both you guys, when's the last time Nebraska seemed like the hungrier team of anybody they play? You brought up Minnesota, Nick. Nebraska, I think, is a more talented team than Minnesota and got blasted that game. I mean, maybe in November against UCLA because they just were done with the season. Maybe that's it. But USC, I don't think so. Maybe in the first half, possibly. Certainly not Penn State, not Iowa, and not tonight against Utah, who you could say, well, are they really ready to give up Whittingham and just move to Scally and move this thing forward when they have 2-star O-linemen sitting out for this game? Its talent is a huge part, but I just where's the culture that we were supposed to see from Matt Rule of guys that develop? I haven't seen development. I'm not trying to point guys out, but for example, tonight, nobody played really well tonight, but Rex Guthrie's a guy that we saw, I think, make some steps early on this year. and didn't play very well the last couple weeks of the season. That's one example. I mean, I hate to call one guy out, but I want to go and see, hey, from week 1 to week 12 in the bowl game, this guy got a lot better. And maybe that's Emmett Johnson this year. Maybe that's the one guy you can point to that was a second-team All-American, by some accounts, first-team All-American.
But that's one out of 100.
It can't be one person. It can't be one. And that's awesome that Emmett did it. I'm thrilled for him. But that's it. That's all we had for key growth from anybody. One person. This is a powerful. This is the Big Ten Conference. You're at a big boy school that expects big things, and I'm sick of being the team that should be playing like an underdog that doesn't. I'm just, when does that start?
Yeah, Jake, Austin, it's interesting that I'm glad Jake brought that up because it's a weird conversation to have because it's so easy to just fall in the cookie cutter approach to this conversation and be like, okay, just write the checks and here, give the resources and here's this. But like, I think, okay, so when I say talent or, identification of talent, it's not just go get the best players. That's not what I'm saying. And this is where I think, Jake, you and I are on the same page without me diving deeper into it, to where it's the staff has to figure out what they want to do. Mike Schaefer tweeted out something, and I 100% fall in line with what Schaefer said on Twitter. He said that a year after Dana Holgorsen is the full-time offensive coordinator, we still don't know what type of offense Dana Holgorsen wants to have. And that I've never agreed with something more, I think, with this Husker football season than that right now. Because if we ask 10 Husker fans, hey, what does Nebraska want to do offensively? And I'm not talking about run the ball 60% of the time, pass the ball 40% of the time. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the culture piece that you mentioned, the physicality piece, the mentality piece. You have to find the right guys, not just the best players. You have to find the right people to not only coach and develop, but also to play. It is a multifaceted piece of it. And when I say talent identification, Austin, I'm encompassing all of that into the talent identification because I'd rather have a 3-star that fits all of the mold of what a staff wants and needs when they know that's what they want and need, rather than a 5-star who's going to get the big check and has such a high ceiling, but also just a massive floor.
Yeah, a few places to go with that. First, to our text line, 3803 says, wow, after 20 years of crap, you're not going to turn things around overnight. Listening to this fan base, I bet their parents were the same kind of fans that almost ran Tom Osborne out of town. I think that's being uncharitable to this position. I think that's putting the worst construction on it because, yes, it's been, one full calendar year and a handful of games for Dana Holgorsen. But have you seen the signs consistently of this offense having an identity, of knowing what it wants to be? You saw a good game against a Wisconsin team that was desperate to try to get to bowl eligibility. Sure. Nebraska showed up well in that game. You saw spurts against USC. Nebraska was really good on first drives and occasionally second drives this year. The conversation in the first quarter was, oh, Dana Holgorsen's got it. Look, this is the offense. Look, they got it figured out. And then Nebraska proceeds to go 5 straight possessions without a first down. 5 straight possessions with, I think, under 10 minutes of time of possession, punting from way backed up in its own territory. Nick, to your point on the fit, the type of talent and players that Nebraska needs to bring in, I made this analogy with Jay, and I'll run it past you guys. To me, it just feels like Nebraska needs its version of the class that saved Coach K, right? That 30 for 30, right? Who's Nebraska's Johnny Dawkins? Who's the Jay Billis? Who's the Mike Jaminski? Guys like that are going to come in as freshmen, see what's wrong, and hold themselves to a higher standard, even if no one else can or will. It's tough. It's not going to be easy because, like the 3803 said, it's 20 years of crap that Nebraska has to dig out of. It's not fair to put it on one person like Dylan Raiola for the last couple of years to be the savior. It's going to take that alignment from top to bottom. It's going to take Matt Rule finding, out what he wants and sticking to it, being convicted in the plan, right? For the Dana Holgorsen point, you would think that if, he had a plan, he knew what he wanted, you would have seen signs of Nebraska moving that direction. And said to me, it felt like Dana Holgorsen was dragged kicking and screaming into giving Emmett Johnson the ball as much as he wanted to. You see the flashes of it, but the consistency isn't there. And that tells me this is still a program, Jake, that's just kind of listlessly floating in the wind, hoping something works instead of being convicted in what it knows will work and trusting the process to play out.
Well, I think it's a big picture issue, guys. We haven't really gone to the 30,000 foot view for a while, but Matt Rule as a coach, excelled at Temple and Baylor in developing those schools in year 2 and 3 in a time before NIL and portal like that. And they went to the NFL, and I'm not saying he forgot how to coach. I don't think he did, but we've seen some coaches in college football who have had issues just getting used to the portal and NIL and how to allocate the money, how to keep guys happy. So, like, again, that's not an excuse for Matt Rule for him to be 19 and 19. That's not actually, it's more of a criticism. Like, hey, man, you had time to look at this over, and everyone's going through all this. Like, Indiana, I know we can't just say, that's an outlier. It is, but it's happening in your conference at a school that never was good.
That it worked in year 1 right away.
Vanderbilt, again, had a bill with Clark Lee. They lost today to Iowa, but they're winning 10 games. Like, all these excuses for schools that have sucked forever, like, it doesn't. That hurts every excuse you have. We say this all the time. Like, we keep saying this all over year after game after game after game, but it's legitimate. Like, it has to matter. Like, there's no excuses. I don't care that you're in your third year and some guys have been in it for a couple. Everyone's going through this at the same time, and schools are figuring it out. And you are doing the same thing about, hey, we need more money. We need more money. I don't think you do. Money's important. You need money, but you need to get, as we said, the right guys. Like, that's why Pat Stewart is going to be so important to say, listen, we got to sit down. We got 2 weeks of the portal opening from this Friday to the 16th. We got to figure this out right away. See the spots we need to get guys and find guys from the lower ranks that want to play up, that have, all the reason to work hard and prove themselves. Like, that's the guys I want. I don't need all. I mean, I'm not saying to get all FCS guys, but I'm going that route. Like, I thought Andrew Marshall was a good fit this year from FCS Idaho. He was a good player. I want guys that are hungry, guys that want to prove they can play Division I FBS football.
Austin, I thought it was really interesting. I know we're up against the clock, so I'll hurry here. But I thought it was interesting. One thing that you mentioned about Dylan Raiola and how he couldn't save the program and things like that. You know why he couldn't? Because Nebraska's issues go way farther than any one player can solve. Their problems are so much deeper than any one player, whether you're a 5-star quarterback or not, can solve on their own and just through play, right? I think, Jake, what you said there was really honest, because I there's so much to this, to where part of your job as a staff and as a head coach is to assess it year after year. And just because you have this isn't a Matt Rule thing, just because a coach has an 8-year contract doesn't mean that it's okay for them to take until year 3 to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we should pivot now. No, like why are we wasting time? Why are you okay with wasting time?
It's fine in a program like Nebraska men's basketball that, again, had been floundering, right? Where there's not as much attention paid to it. But in the money earner, in the bell cow of the university, where it's both your points, other schools have gotten it right and Nebraska can't. Better late than never, but better early than late, right? You can't just hang your hat on, well, better late than never. We got to get there eventually. Here's the other thing I'll add on that.
Yeah.
Who's been with Fred Hoiberg his entire tenure? Not Matt Abdelmassih, not Doc Sadler, not Pat Monahan. Ernie Ziegler's been there, but Nate Lenzer. He's essentially Fred Hoiberg's Morgan Scalley right now in some ways, right? Who is Matt Rule's co-pilot? Not sure he had one in year 1. Last couple years, was it Dylan Raiola? Was it Dom Raiola? Was it Dana Holgerson? Was it Troy Dana? Is it Pat Stewart this year? Who is there alongside Matt Rule, helping him execute his vision, holding him accountable to it when he starts to get a wandering eye, or he gets distracted or has too much on his plate? Kyle Whittingham had that for 20-some years in Morgan Scalley there by his side, right? You think about the guys Kirby Smart's had by his side, Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney before it went off the rails, but with Venables and Tony Elliott, and you can go down the list for all the successful programs. Matt Rule thinks he knows where he wants to take Nebraska. He can have his vision. He's to be held to account to that. But Matt Rule hasn't had anyone consistently by his side in the driver's seat that he knows he can trust to keep him on track. To me, that might be offseason point number 1, is who is that right-hand man for Matt Rule? If he gets it right, Nebraska can start to take off. If he gets it wrong, more of the same. let's go to break on that. Experience better with upfront market-based pricing at Anderson Auto Group of Lincoln, 27th and I-80 and 33rd and Yankee Hill. Jake Sorensen, Nick Sainert chiming in from Las Vegas. I'm Austin Norman back at 10 at 40 O Street. Short break. More of your thoughts on our Starter Heyman Jewelers text line as well when we get back.
You're listening to coverage of Nebraska football in the 2025 Las Vegas Bowl on 93.7 The Ticket. Bowl game coverage is sponsored by Advanced Medical Imaging, MWR Building and Fence, Ben Bleicher of Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, and Amigos Kings Classic. This is Nebraska football bowl game coverage on 93.7 The Ticket.
At Jimmy John's, we don't make sandwiches. We make the sandwich of sandwiches. We use fresh veggies because we don't hate salads. We just feel bad for them. We make our sandwiches exactly how you want because you're the one who's eating it. And we bake bread all day, every day because stale bread isn't bread. It's croutons. Sandwich history is written by the victors. Good thing we have legible handwriting. Jimmy John's, the sandwich of sandwiches. Order pickup or delivery on the app.
Nebraska farmers, harvest is here and every gallon counts. That's why Sat Brothers Petroleum launched the Go Big Red Fuel Giveaway. When you contract your fuel with Sat Brothers, enter to win $1,000 in fuel credits. As Husker Country knows, the only thing stronger than the roar at Memorial Stadium is the drive of a farmer putting food on the table. Fuel your farm with Sat Brothers Petroleum and enter to win $1,000 in fuel credits. Visit satbros.net today. Sat Brothers Petroleum, fueling the heartland. Go Big Red.
Need to save some cash but still want peace of mind? Well, then head over to Schaefer's Clearance Outlet at 48th and R. There you'll find hundreds of appliances, scratch and dent, one-of-a-kind, home returns, or refurbished, and they're all covered by full manufacturer warranties. That means big savings without giving up protection or confidence. So if you're ready for new appliances and want to keep more money in your wallet, visit Schaefer's Clearance Outlet Wednesdays 4 to 7 and Saturdays 9 to noon at 48th and R.
Sometimes good people make mistakes. When you find yourself in need of an attorney, call Liberty Law Group. The attorneys at Liberty Law Group will defend you in court and protect your freedom to get you the best possible outcome and the justice you deserve. Trust your freedom to Liberty Law Group, the best criminal attorneys in Nebraska and Iowa. Call them today at 877-404-5238. That's 877-404-5238. Or check them out online at libertylawgroup.com.
I can't believe I just scratched that car. Find my insurance card.
Dude, what do you have in this glove box? Ew, are these socks dirty?
Oh, forget about the socks. I need my insurance card.
Just pull it up on the State Farm mobile app.
But I can do that? Oh, hey, I can do that.
Yep, it's called service.
I can file a claim on here too?
Yeah, it's called service.
Whoa, I can call my agent too?
It's called service.
Call your local State Farm agent, Vinny Krikak, today at 402-474-1173.
MWR, a local company of Lincoln, is proud to announce they are able to offer their own post-frame building packages in metal to anyone desiring a building, whether you're a contractor or a DIYer. They can install your building as always, and they offer multiple different rib profiles and loads of color options, including the wood grain metal at great competitive prices. You can inquire at mwrbuildingandfence.com or just draw your desired building and submit it in their contact us page, and they'll get back to you. Call MWR today at 402-540-8966.
Stonebrook Exterior is your trusted partner in exterior solutions for both residential and commercial projects across Lincoln and Omaha. With over 2 decades of expertise, they deliver everything your building needs, all under one roof. From roofing and siding to gutters, wall systems, custom masonry, and metalwork, Stonebrook handles it all with precision, safety, and professionalism. Take the worry out of your exterior projects. Choose Stonebrook Exterior, where quality, safety, and service come together seamlessly. Visit StonebrookExterior.com or call 402-438-5559 to get your free quote today.
Back to the Jay Foreman Postgame Show on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Powered by Baumgars, Anderson Ford, and Vinny Krikak of State Farm Insurance. Here are your hosts, Jay Foreman and Nick Sainert.
That's right. Welcome back in. It is the Jay Foreman post-game show. No Jay Foreman. He had to dip. That's all right. Austin Norman here in studio. We got Jake Sorensen and Nick Sainert chiming in from Las Vegas as well. Thanks to Vinny Krikak of State Farm, Baumgars, and Anderson Ford of Lincoln for their help sponsoring our post-game coverage all year long. Jake, I'll throw this one to you first. Obviously, the defense is the story. 44 points allowed by Nebraska. That's a problem. This is also a defense that allowed the most yards to a single player in Las Vegas Bowl history. Devin Dampier sets the record there, and this is the most yards allowed in the Matt Rule era, most yards the Huskers have allowed dating back to Purdue in 2022. When you assess this defensive performance, obviously not good. Do you give them any level of a pass for starting to work in some of Rob Orick's schemes and stuff, the new play caller and Phil Snow? Or is this plain and simple a group that continued to not put, its full effort out there on the line, maybe not talented enough? Do you give them any sort of a pass for all the changes being made on that side? Or is this maybe a fitting end to the season with the way the end of the season went against Penn State and Iowa?
No pass, fitting in. I thought it was very odd. We were outside Matt Rule's room when he was doing postgame, and I was reading some of the recap of it. I don't understand working in a new system for the bowl game to get ahead for next year. You have the whole offseason for that. I mean, these guys know their defense. I know that their guy got fired, John Butler, and they're trying to do something to get things going. But Matt Rule said there was confusion on the defense with some of the quarters being worked in on the pass plays. And I asked, what was the goal of the game? Was the goal to get reps in for 2026, or was the goal to get an 8th win, snap the skid against ranked teams, and end the season on a high note? I don't get that. So no, that itself, that answer takes away any pass. Like you were trying to mess around with your defense, which is struggling, and potentially make it more confused. I mean, I go back to guys 10 years ago. I'll never forget this. Mike Riley's first year at Nebraska. Nebraska gets steamrolled on Halloween by a horrendous Purdue team. And in postgame, I think Mark Banker or Mike Riley said, maybe the players were saying they were confused and still using some terminology from Bo's defense the year before, which is, again, this was 8 games into the season. And again, unacceptable by everybody in that realm. And I think this is unacceptable by Matt Rule. Like, what are you doing? Like, these guys are trying to win the game. Why are you confusing them with elements for next year? I mean, Rob Arch is still working his own personnel. Like, I don't get that. There is no pass at all for that. And that's frankly shameful, if you ask me.
Yeah, guys, it was really strange. Austin, Jake and I were standing outside of the locker room at one point, and Phil Snow walked out, and he was like, "How do I walk to the hotel? Like, where do I go to walk to the hotel?" Like, you could tell Phil Snow wasn't thrilled about today's performance. Austin, I don't want to sound harsh, but I think we have some right to be a little bit critical when a guy is making $400,000 a year, and you were surprised that he was brought in the first place. And now he's the interim defensive coordinator, and you had your worst defensive performance. I think that it was so bizarre. I think like this is where I think Husker fans have a right, and it's understandable if they are skeptical of the future right now. And the reason I say that is because, and like this, I guess this is me telling Husker fans, like your feelings are justified if you're on that side, because let's just go through. In addition to all of just the general changes and staff members that haven't worked out, let's just go through the whole time when it was brought up that, hey, Dana Holgerson's here as kind of a liaison to Marcus Satterfield, and we all understood that. But then it was like, okay, whatever I got to do to one side of the ball, I need to do to the other. Like, that's what it felt like, which seems so childish and stupid and pointless. And it was like, we also brought in Phil Snow as he's kind of like joining on Zoom calls initially because Tony White's got, like, he's helping Tony with stuff on that side of the ball. And like, we all sat there and was like, what part of the defense is so horrendous that you feel like, number one, I hate the idea of a liaison, because what does that tell everybody is that the people in the building aren't good enough to do their damn job. So you have to bring somebody else in. Well, who's in charge of bringing them, the staff members in the first place? You are. I never understood that, and how we never questioned that a little bit more. And maybe that's on me because I should just ask Matt Rule that question. But I like, you look back on it now, and hindsight's 2020, obviously, Austin. But the whole decision to bring in Phil Snow when Tony White's defense wasn't spectacular, but it was fine, especially in comparison to the offense. And I think that there's something to be said about it. It really felt bizarre in that moment. And you didn't know, okay, is this going to be a full-time thing? What's this going to do? We know how much Phil Snow means to Matt Rule as well. And now you have a situation that ever since Phil Snow got here, that the defense has just felt so disconnected. And frankly, so is the offense since Dana's got here. Like, I'm just going to say it. Like, ever since I think it's okay to say that ever since those two guys got here, both sides of the ball have never had a consistent feeling of being unified and that they work in sync. And I'm not saying that it's once again, like, it's only those two at fault, because there are many other assistant coaches. Sometimes I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen at times. And I know that's where you're going to want to go, Austin. So that's why I kind of purposely brought that up, is because I think at times there can be too many voices, which goes back to your right-hand man. Who is number 2? Who is number 3? And it should be the offensive and defensive coordinator in some capacity. But what Matt Rule told us when he brought in Phil Snow and Dana Holgorsen as the liaisons, that those guys instantly were guys that Matt Rule trusted more than Tony White and Marcus Satterfield in that position. So now as those two guys move in, what do you think they're feeling? Every single mix-up, every single mistake, every single time that they jab back and forth at each other, which is not always a negative thing in competition, they feel like, oh, man, I got to watch what I'm going to say because I was brought in to replace somebody. Why won't they do the same exact thing to me?
It's the too many cooks in the kitchen point. That's right where I was going, because it's one thing if you bring in Phil Snow as your advisor, a special assistant to the head coach or, associate head coach, not really an on-field role, but just a guy for Matt Rule to go back to at the end of every day, a guy that's not involved in practice in any way. He's just watching, just observing. And maybe that can freak some people out, right? No one likes having I guess my parents are teachers, right? You don't like having the principal sit in and do their assessment, but sure, it's good to have maybe an extra layer of eyes if the head coach is going to be so involved. But when, to your point, Nick, Phil Snow gets involved in play calling and scheming and personnel, when Dana Holgorsen is there looking over Marcus Satterfield's shoulder with a much better reputation than Marcus Satterfield, it's only natural to look over your shoulder and wonder, okay, what's going on? Do I have to worry about something? Clearly, Tony White had to worry about something. John Butler, maybe to the same degree. I don't think it's necessarily wrong to have brought in a Phil Snow if Matt Rule trusts him as much. Now, $400,000 to drop on the guy, that's pay him a living wage, and he's good for a guy that's in essentially a volunteer role. That goes to the allocation of resources piece. I think that's a fair question. But even if I think it's fine to bring in Phil Snow, make sure it's for the right reason, and you are very clear with your staff and with Phil Snow what his role is going to be. Same with Dana Holgorsen. That one always felt like more of a threat, and maybe a Matt Rule decision. Maybe that was, pushed on Matt Rule from the outside. But again, it reflects on Matt Rule. You need to have ownership of this program. You have to be the one with the clear vision, with people that you trust to help you execute your vision, because ultimately you're held responsible for it. If you keep bringing in these outside voices, it's, I trusted these guys and they didn't have the right ideas, so I had to cycle through them. No, Matt Rule, it's your job to identify people that are going to be on the same wavelength as you. The ideal offensive coordinator to me right now for Nebraska, I'm not saying this name's going to happen. It's not going to happen because of the success this team's had. But from what we've heard Matt Rule say, the offensive coordinator archetype that Matt Rule wants is Barry Lunny Jr. Think about the numbers that he had at UTSA. Illinois went and got him. Fits what Brett Bielema wants to do. Have they been an elite offense? No. But they've done everything Illinois needed. They found ways to win games. They've had an identity. Matt Rule pays lip service to it, but doesn't go out and get guys that fit that vision. He doesn't make his staff comfortable when he makes these moves to bring people in. And Jake, I'll start with you here on our Starter Heyman Jewelers text line. Dave Braska, the worst thing is that the team is not better at the end of the season than they were at the beginning of the season. Bofus, zero confidence in this head coach, great in press conferences, and that is it. Kevin in Southwest Lincoln, the football program continues to bring down a very successful athletic department. No more excuses. Our text line in our comment section are showing zero signs of confidence in the direction of this program and in the vision, whatever it is that Matt Rule's laid out to this point through 3 complete seasons.
Well, again, that's why I say that this offseason's huge, and it starts Friday. I mean, the second to the 16th are 14 days of portal activity. I mean, you got to figure this out. Where guys, you have a lot of guys that leave, and you got to get guys to come in here, and you got to have a plan now. And that's why, I said again, Pat Stewart the GM is so important right now, because you need to figure out if guys are here to get a big paycheck or if they're guys that want to go to the league and get better. And which one is it? Because I don't think it's both usually. Some guys are, coming from an SEC school, and we've made that mistake too many times of guys that, we got suckered by, it's Alabama, it's Georgia. This guy's got to be great. Well, there's a reason why he left. He wasn't very good, and he don't play here at all. And there's so many guys that are on that list. And until Nebraska changes the way they operate, they're not going to change at all how they get talent. And I've said time and time again, like, if you look at, I'll go to Indiana, look at their roster. They're not getting a bunch of guys from Alabama and Georgia. It's guys from James Madison and Kent State and FAU. Like, these are guys that are elite players in the Big Ten and in college football. And it doesn't have to be that hard. We just go raid the Power Four. And they need to stop doing that. There's certain guys that will work out. I'm not saying you go fully away from it, but that is just not how this is going to work out. And if they keep going that route, we will have the same problems about guys who are just here to get a bigger paycheck. They're getting the Power Four, and it's all about guys playing up. And if they can't figure that out, then this is never going to work here at all.
Guys, let's have a big picture conversation, because this thought just came into my mind. Or at least it's been in my mind. I just haven't known how I want to articulate it, but I think I'm ready for it today. Nebraska basketball doing what they're doing this season, great for the athletic department, horrible for Matt Rule. And the reason I say that is because ever since Nebraska basketball now over these last 2 years has had this steady climb, and really since the crown, but especially this season with the undefeated start, going through non-con, knocking off teams that not only you're supposed to beat bad, but also teams that maybe you're more evenly matched with, maybe even undermatched with, and it's not a great matchup for you. You've been able to beat teams. The buzz that's around the program, and also the universal understanding of resources that is allocated to the basketball program, it is causing everybody, casual fans of basketball, football, diehard Husker fans, us in this business, it is causing everybody to put a microscope on football, and more so than I think usual, because we are sitting there going, look at what Fred Hoiberg is doing, and with a fraction. Now, I get roster sizes it's a different beast. I'm not trying to compare it, and it's not apples to apples, and I am very well aware
You're
of that.
40,000 feet up in the sky right now. We get that.
Yes, but it's a big picture conversation. As if you wanted to break it down per player, there's more allocated towards football, and rightfully so, with it being the main driver, with it being the moneymaker, right? But if you wanted to break it down per player and what is offered to these guys and to this staff, and in a role that Matt Rule is in, where you never get told no. You are never told no. Your organizational management and your vision has to be clear as day, because you are never going to be told no. Fred Hoiberg, there's been times, I'm sure, where he's gone and said, hey, look, I could really do something with this if we can get this. And the answer is, look, we can maybe give you a little bit of the cake, but we can't give you the whole damn thing. And that type of approach from Fred is something that Husker fans, I think it's very easy to get behind and cheer with all their power and might for. And when things go well on that side of the fence, but on the other side where you are doing everything you can and then some, and you are selling your soul to be good at football, and it still is not providing the results, that is where the microscope comes in. And I'm telling you guys right now that two things Matt Rule said that really bugged me was when he came out and asked for more money. And number two was when he said, I'm trying to do the exact same thing as Fred Hoiberg. No, the hell you're not. No, it is a complete – if you are trying to build Nebraska football where you're getting $20 to $30 million of a roster for NIL, you are not even on the same playing field as Nebraska basketball is. You are ranked in the top 5 in the Big Ten Conference, where basketball is ranked in the bottom 3 in the Big Ten Conference. It is a completely different story. That is, I said it that day when that came out. I said that is disrespectful to Fred Hoiberg. I get where Matt was coming from when he said that, and that he's trying to build like a stable and steady winner. I get that part of it, but in terms of what you are given and what people will bend over backwards for you day after day to just give you any bit of chance at having success, you have to control your bleep. You got to take care of what you control. And to this point, he just hasn't. And that's where I think it's okay for Husker fans that the feelings are justified if you're skeptical, because there's a lot of those little nuggets that when you add them all together, it causes a lot of concern.
I think there's another element. Maybe discuss this earlier in the show, Austin, but I'd like to discuss it right now if we could. I don't understand the whole backwards hat thing Rule's got going on. The guy is he's frankly being weird. Like everything about Matt Rule in the last month or so, and I'm not kidding. It's off. The guy is not himself. This is like a very strange thing he's doing. I'm not saying like there's something wrong with him mentally by any means, but like he's grasping at straws. I don't know what he's doing. What has been the gist of the conversation around that? Because I mean, if you talk to the media guys, they're all like, this is ridiculous. I mean, I'm not trying to say this is me and Nick's take. Everyone's saying this. Like, are you trying to click with the guys, or what is going on? Because it's become a stupid talking point because he's making it a stupid talking point. It's just being bizarre. I don't know what's going on with him.
Yeah, we talked about very, very briefly. My thoughts are this. It feels to me kind of like Patrick Mahomes wearing Kelly Green to the Super Bowl. Jay and I talked about that when it happened, Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl, the Eagles dominated last year, was you lost the game before it started. You were engaging in mental warfare because you know you were outmatched. To me, it feels like Matt Rule, yes, probably trying to connect with the team. Matt Rule trying to get something to stick. But I would argue the same thing about, the all reds in the game that Nebraska wore those. I would argue the same thing about the all whites. I would argue the same thing about the blackout uniforms. I think it all led to this backwards hat. Nothing is working. The message isn't sticking. The team needs a rallying point. I need something to distract. And I think it maybe fits in with what the fan base has been saying. Is Matt Rule anything more than a salesman? Is it just another ploy to distract from it? It's, hey, here's the next thing I'm going to try because I'm not confident in or I haven't seen results from the process that I have in place. I don't think on its own it's a big deal. Okay, it's the end of the season. Matt Rule, getting back to his roots, maybe that was more for him than for the team. But when it continues to not work, when it becomes a story and when it seems like it's distracting from the main thing, it feels like a gimmick, right? You think about, PJ Fleck, row the boat, all his energy. Guess what? He gets away with it because it works. When you have a shtick, when you're unapologetically yourself, you can get away with it. But it doesn't feel to me like it's authentic from Matt Rule. It feels like it's covering for something or again, a smokescreen trying to distract from the fact that, hey, we have to try this because just getting down to business, just coaching isn't working for us. Here's something that I hope the team can glom onto and rally behind. And since that didn't work, I'm sure we'll hear something new, coming up in January or February. When Matt Rule wraps up the season or previews spring ball, it's the next chasing three is what it feels like to me.
You sending a signal there, Matt, Nick, with your backwards hat?
No, not necessarily. Here's the deal.
Or what?
No, I'm just Matt. Here, when the hat's forward, I'm coach. I think it's time that we are just football coaches. I think,
what a concept, by the way.
It's crazy. I feel like I've been very negative on this show so far. And
you should be. You should be negative.
But I think that Husker fans, correct me if I'm wrong on the text line, on the video stream, I think we're just kind of all sick and tired of the you-know-what. We're just tired of it. And once we know this about whether it's Scott Frost, whether it's Mike Riley, Bo Pelini, Matt Rule, this is not like a personal shot, but it's once you start going down the slippery slope of fans getting tired of the shtick, then it goes bad. It unravels fast. And I go back to, once again, then, when you have other programs that are working with a lot less, that are having a lot more success, you're going to start to see the difference. And I just think that you're always going to have the support for the football program, and rightfully so. And that's what makes Nebraska special. We know all that conversation, but at the end of the day, I want Matt Rule to work out here, and I just want him to be a football coach. I just that's all I want.
Nick, I think part of that is that I think you mentioned that the fans are sick of the same old thing happening, or just knowing what to expect. Like today, example, Nebraska's down 10 at halftime. The game's not over, but it felt over. We said there was 14-7 lead. Here comes all these points and 17-0 run. And Nebraska fans know how this story goes. Why does it always have to go that way? Why can't they have a good second half where the defense makes a play or gets an interception or pick six and the offense picks it up? Like, it's sad that it was a 10-point game and a half, and we all thought this is pretty much over. Like, we were hopeful, saying it's maybe, you never know, but fans knew we've seen this story before. Like, that's the problem. Nothing from the Mike Riley era, the Scott Frost era is changing with this coaching scheme, with this coaching staff of, again, they got to bowl games. That's great. They got to the 2 years in a row. They got that. That's one thing. But it doesn't change the narrative in games like that, where it's either a tied game at half or they're barely down. You just don't feel like it's going to come back in the second half. Minnesota's a great example. Not a great football team. You're down at halftime barely, and they roll you the second half. Why? Why is it happening?
It's funny you bring up the name Mike Riley. Matt Rule and Mike Riley now have the same record after 3 years at 19 and 19, both with a close bowl win and a pretty big bowl loss. I'm going to get to this on YouTube from Conservative Husker. The backwards hat was something with the players that came out. The other channel forced it. He tried to clean up and leave the hat. Husker Radio Network asked him to keep the hat backward for the interview, and it became something the team was willing to talk about. LOL. Chill. Whether or not that's true, let's take it at face value that Matt Rule tried to leave the hat behind. Then leave the hat behind. You're the head coach of the program. If you're going to let your radio network dictate your attire and what you wear, if you're going to let them make it a talking point, if you're asked about it, just say, hey, you know what? I was wearing a hat that day. I flipped it around. End of story. It's not a thing. But instead, you made the choice to lean into it in practice, throughout interviews, throughout podium sessions. You made the conscious choice to come out of the tunnel and be seen on TV with your hat backwards as just Matt. If you're in charge of your program, you have the stones to leave the hat in the locker room. If you're in charge of your program and you want to be that CEO coach that has a grip and has a plan and has people confident in your plan, no matter how highly rated a recruit is, no matter how much his dad keeps texting you, you say, you know what? This isn't your program. I'll work with you. But you don't have control of this program. I'm the head coach. If you're not willing to do that, that tells me a lot.
I just think I'm going to be honest, guys. Like, the hat is, it's so stupid that we reference it, because that's just like the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion. Like, that's just, it's not even like, it's not even that like I'm hurting for this program. Like, it's not even that. It's not even that conversation anymore. It's just more so of just like, I'm not fed up with Matt Rule. I'm not sitting here saying that you need to fire Matt Rule. I think it's very important that we mention that here, because I don't think any of us are sitting here saying Nebraska needs to go in a completely different direction. No, I think that this is an off season where every coach on that staff can look at themselves in the mirror and go, okay, how do we want this thing to play out? Because in the end, Matt Rule is in control of his destiny. Like, sure, you can't control the schedule, you can't control how difficult it is, but you can show up to work every day and put all of the extracurricular stuff that really doesn't matter when you're trying to become a good football team. You can put all of that aside and still be Matt. Like, I get that you want to be a friend, and you can, but every coach across the country that has success has figured it out. And Matt Rule is smart enough and is a good enough football coach and has been around the game long enough and knows enough people to where he can figure it out too. you have to want to. Just as much as we talk about the players wanting to get better and wanting to have the mentality, I just saw Riley Van Poppel said that they want to get back to the black shirt mentality. Frankly, like,
Do they know what that is?
Yeah. Do you know what it is? Number one. Number two, don't say it just to say it. Don't say it just to say it, because I just think that like everybody's just tired of the shtick, and not just Matt Rules. I think they're just tired of the Nebraska football shtick of like, hey, here we are. We're going to try to get back to what it was, and or at least some semblance of what it was. But in truth, I'm not sure they know how to. And so then it just looks really, really unorganized.
I'll add one thing on top of that quickly, Dick. To that note, I said, are you here for a check or are you here to win? That's the question I have about all these, every one of them, every single one of them. And that's on themselves. That's on the coaching staff to figure that out. And if there's a big exodus of players that leave, then that's fine. I mean, nothing hasn't really elevated here, so no one should really freak out and panic. But you have to, I mean, if Pat Stewart should be saying to these guys, Matt Rule, are you here for a check or are you here to win? And somehow prove that, because, like I said, this is not changing until that narrative changes.
We're at the top of the hour. It's 8 o'clock here. It's 6 o'clock out there where you guys are. Jake Sorensen, Nick Sainer, appreciate you guys hopping on here for the hour. Glad you made it back. Enjoy your New Year's Eve in Vegas, gentlemen. We'll see you when you get back to the 402.
Goodbye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
We'll keep rolling here on the Jay Foreman post-game show. Not going anywhere till you guys are out of thoughts. We'll head to break when we get back. Some interesting stuff from our Starter Heyman Jewelers text line. Froth and Jeremy have an eye toward the future. What does the future look like? Are there any reasons to be optimistic? Was there anything positive from this bowl game? We'll talk about that as the Jay Foreman post-game show continues.
You're listening to coverage of Nebraska football in the 2025 Las Vegas Bowl on 93.7 The Ticket. Bowl game coverage is sponsored by Advanced Medical Imaging, MWR Building and Fence, Ben Bleicher of Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, and Amigos Kings Classic. This is Nebraska football bowl game coverage on 93.7 The Ticket. This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet. KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
There are so many realtors in Lincoln and Omaha, but don't get overwhelmed by all the no-names, plus all the different companies. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Real Estate is your go-to option, whether buying or selling residential, luxury, leasing, investment properties, or commercial property, small or large. Ben's team offers decades of experience, unbeatable customer service, and promises to fully protect your interests throughout the entire transaction. Call 402-419-6309 for all your real estate needs. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group of BHHS Ambassador Real Estate.
Amigos is serving up a brand new way to score the bold, fresh flavors you love with 8 affordable value meals. At $5 and $6, these meals are easy on the wallet, so treat yourself anytime. Sink into the new 3-cheese melt or taco melt, both stacked with crave-worthy flavor in every bite. There's crunchy taquito dippers, too, perfect for dunking in Amigos' famous ranch or spicy cheese. Big flavor, small price. Value meals at Amigos.
MWR, a local company of Lincoln, is proud to announce they are able to offer their own post-frame building packages in metal to anyone desiring a building, whether you're a contractor or a DIYer. They can install your building as always, and they offer multiple different rib profiles and loads of color options, including the wood grain metal at great competitive prices. You can inquire at mwrbuildingandfence.com or just draw your desired building and submit it in their Contact Us page, and they'll get back to you. Call MWR today at 402-540-8966.
January is your reset button. This January 10th, Carroll's Extreme Body Shaping in Lincoln is kicking off our 10-week challenge. We combine high-energy kickboxing, powerful strength training, and simple, proven nutrition to deliver real results in just 10 weeks. For a limited time, get $150 off when you enroll today. No gimmicks, just coaching, accountability, and a community that pushes you to win. Spots are limited, so don't wait. Visit fxblincoln.com and start your strongest year yet at Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping. 2 locations, South 40th and Yankee Hill, North 70th and Vine. Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping, changing lives 10 weeks at a time.
Select Plumbing and Utility has been serving Lincoln and the surrounding area for 14 years, and they're not slowing down. Select Plumbing and Utility handles all your plumbing needs, from faucets and water heaters to full renovations, and they can even help with your heating and cooling needs. They're also Lincoln's underground experts, repairing and replacing broken underground water and sewer lines since day one. Contact Select Plumbing and Utility today at 402-560-6197, assuring excellence in every situation, opportunity, and challenge. That's 402-560-6197.
Husker fans know when you work together, great things happen. At Cornhusker Bank, they're more than your financial partner. With 5 locations in Lincoln and 1 in Omaha, they're your neighbors, your teammates, and your biggest fans. Whether you're saving for your first home, planning your future, or growing your business, they're right here in Nebraska to help you move forward together. Visit cornhusker.bank to learn more. Cornhusker Bank, member FDIC. Doing life together.
Hey there, this is Paul Scheel, owner of High Electric. I want to thank our friends and loyal customers and introduce High Electric to those looking for a new electrician. We've been serving the Lincoln and Omaha area for over 30 years, from design to install, upgrades, and repair. If you are a homeowner or a small business needing some electrical work, call us at 402-466-6606 or check us out at hyelectric.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Stonebrook Exterior is your trusted partner in exterior solutions for both residential and commercial projects across Lincoln and Omaha. With over 2 decades of expertise, they deliver everything your building needs, all under one roof. From roofing and siding to gutters, wall systems, custom masonry, and metalwork, Stonebrook handles it all with precision, safety, and professionalism. Take the worry out of your exterior projects. Choose Stonebrook Exterior, where quality, safety, and service come together seamlessly. Visit StonebrookExterior.com or call 402-438-5559 to get your free quote today.
Back to the Jay Foreman Postgame Show on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Powered by Baumgars, Anderson Ford, and Vinny Kreekak of State Farm Insurance. Here are your hosts, Jay Foreman and Nick Sainert.
Just kidding. Neither of them. It's just us, Norman, and you. Our Starter Heyman Jewelers text line, our Starter Heyman Jewelers comment section online. Honda of Lincoln hotline also open, 402-464-5685. Let's hit that Starter Heyman Jewelers text line as I promised. So, Froth, you've been trying to call in. You just sent a text here instead. Froth wants to know, what positivity or optimism could Nebraska have moving forward in year 4 of Matt Rule? Froth says he's really searching and not optimistic. Jeremy texts in, 72% of Nebraska's current 105-man roster are freshmen or sophomores. That explains a lot about the current situation. Says it's more of a reality. Does that mean it pans out? Nebraska hasn't seen the growth needed to compete on the championship level under Rule. Nebraska needs to have a foundation established, and hopefully that means buy-in and ownership of success. I think that's what, I don't want to say spin. That sounds more like the PR way to phrase it. But I think that is one legitimate way to view the way that this season ended and where Nebraska is at, is that it was among the youngest rosters in Power 4, among the youngest rosters in the Big Ten, and maybe the youngest in some ways. And 72% of the current 105, that's a large chunk of players that are freshmen or sophomores. But I would love to know the breakdown even more. How many of those guys were redshirt freshmen that sat out a year and were in their second year of the program, or redshirt sophomores that sat for a year, didn't get on the field last year and had opportunities this year? How many of those guys got recruited over in the transfer portal and weren't given an opportunity, or didn't go earn an opportunity to play more significant snaps to where Nebraska felt like it needed to go to the portal? As we look at the bright spots for Nebraska in tonight's game, I don't think it was necessarily, the brightest bulb in the box, but it certainly wasn't a light bulb that had fizzed out. It was TJ Lateef. He looked the way I expected. He looked like you could see, with an offseason of development, with a system tailored for what it is he does well, there's a path for TJ Lateef to be a legitimate starting quarterback in the Big Ten for Nebraska for the next couple years, right? 2026, probably 2027 as well. I think there's a path for TJ Lateef. He didn't show me anything to talk me out of the fact that it's a possibility. It's not a guarantee. And you love a guarantee at the quarterback position. It's hard to come by. But TJ Lateef was bright enough that I don't think Nebraska should be looking to move on, that Nebraska should be looking to get a one-year bridge guy, just to get to Trey Taylor in 2027, for example. I saw enough from TJ Lateef throughout the last 4 games that there's clay there to mold. Is this the coaching staff to get it out of him? Remains to be seen. But I think he at least deserves a look. Mekhi Nelson, 12 carries, 88 yards, a touchdown, the long of 38. Mekhi Nelson ran hard, ran well. That 38-yard touchdown, you see the vision, you see the speed that Nebraska coaches had been talked up. He also ends up with 3 catches, second most on the team, and tied for the team lead in receiving yards. 3 catches for 48. The long of 24 came on that wheel route, and 40 of those 48 yards came after the catch. We've seen Mekhi Nelson in the screen game. He lowered his shoulder. I think it was against UCLA maybe, or Maryland, one of the two that comes to mind for me. Mekhi Nelson can be a weapon for Nebraska. Did I see enough to anoint him RB1? No, I did not. But I see what Nebraska was talking about. Isaiah Mosey had flashes. I'm not sure he's a running back. 7 carries, 32 yards. Not bad. I get why Nebraska put him there. Maybe he's a hybrid type of guy. Maybe he's the next Ramir Johnson. But I hope Nebraska figures out if Isaiah Mosey is a slot receiver or if he's going to be a running back. It's going to be best for him. It's going to be best for Nebraska if they know what he is, right? Use him in different roles in different ways when the situation calls for it, but he doesn't need to be splitting time at wide receiver or running back. Figure out this offseason what you think he is. Even Quentin Ives, it wasn't bad necessarily. 4 carries for 14 yards, only 3.5 per carry for him with a long of 6, but Quentin Ives can be that hammerback, right? Is there any reason that Quentin Ives can't be Amani Cross, where that he's the sledgehammer on 3rd down and, you're within 4? You just need a guy to move the pile. He's not going to make a ton of people miss, has enough speed to, be able to threaten for a 10, 20-yard gain. But that when he's in the game, Nebraska wants to go straight ahead and move bodies, like was the line from the offensive line throughout the week in Las Vegas. I think you feel okay about the future of the running back position at Nebraska right now. Doesn't seem to be an Emmett Johnson in that room. Maybe Mekhi Nelson looked like the closest thing to it tonight. I still think running back should be a position that Nebraska targets out of the transfer portal, but I think that was a bright spot. Wide receiver, no Isaiah Hunter for it. Nebraska. Quinn Clark ends up with 1 catch for 31 yards. A big one down the sideline there at the end of the game, and then the 2-point conversion attempt for Nebraska as well that they convert on. Quinn Clark didn't get a whole lot of run all year, but I think if you can count on Quinn Clark being back, you've seen enough from him that you hope he can step into the Dane Key role in some ways. If you're able to get an Isaiah Hunter back perfectly healthy, again, maybe not a supernova or a bright shining star by any stretch of the imagination, but good enough that you have a foundation there to build off of. Ja'Cory Barney Jr., we'll see what the role is for him, if he's a slot guy, if he's an outside guy, a horizontal threat or a vertical threat. I'm still left wanting more from Ja'Cory Barney Jr. That's a guy the coaching staff seems to really love and want to get the ball to and appreciate what he means to that locker room. We'll see what the future holds for him. Is there a year 2 leap in a guy like Cortez Mills? Remains to be seen. Saw a lot of Carter Nelson on the field tonight. I think that's a good sign for Nebraska in the long term as he continues to get healthy. So I think that the skill positions are relatively settled. Not perfect, not in a 100% settled state. No one's guaranteed a starting job by any means next year. But I think that Nebraska's developmental processes are working at those positions. You can bring in young guys. You can bring in, a bit player potentially at wide receiver. I think you go get a guy that's going to challenge for the starting job at running back. And I think you're fine on the offensive side of the ball. You're going to bring in a quarterback. Fans seem to think Nebraska's headed to the portal for some offensive line help, maybe guys with some pedigree or a track record and connection to Jeep Wade or Lonnie Teasley. And that's fine. Go do it. But I still think the ideal outcome for Nebraska is that the guys they target out of the transfer portal have multiple years of eligibility remaining. and can help be a part of the class that's setting that foundation. Like Jeremy says, need to have a foundation established, and hopefully that means buy-in and ownership of success. That's what I'm talking about when I bring up that class that saved Coach K, like Jay and I riffed on in the first hour, and like I brought up with Nick and Jake. At some point, some group has to say, enough. We're going to be better than this. We have to be better than this because we know that we're better than this. Some group has to have the pride on both sides of the ball, a full class, offense, defense, shoot, throw special teams in there if you want to say, no, we know we can play better than this. We know we can work harder than this. We know we can execute better than this. If you're not going to hold us to a higher standard, we're going to hold ourselves to it. It's tough. It's not an enviable position to be in. But I think in some cases, it's where Nebraska's at right now. Defensively, really not many bright spots to hang your hat on if you're Nebraska tonight. Leading tackler on the night, Caleb Benning, 13 tackles, 4 of them were solo. Vincent Shavers, 9 tackles. Donnie Jones, 8 tackles for him. Andrew Marshall, 4 tackles, also had a pass breakup. I believe that one was in the first half. Maybe you can say the bright spot for Nebraska on the defensive side of the ball is that 2 of those guys I mentioned, as well as Cam Lenhart, announced in postgame that they plan to return. You think of Vincent Shavers, who announced, Donovan Jones, who announced, and then Cam Lenhart. Vincent Shavers probably the highest ceiling of that group. What's his mind like? What can his body look like after another year of strength and conditioning? Can he step up as a leader and be an unquestioned, middle linebacker leader type in a new scheme in the Big Ten? I would like to think that potential's there. Let's see it next year in a big year for Vincent Shavers Jr. Donovan Jones, is he a cornerback? I don't know if I would put him out there. I'm curious to see what Rob Orrick thinks of Donovan Jones. If it's me, I'm putting Donovan Jones in that rover position, if that's one that is in Rob Orrick's defense, kind of what Deshaun Singleton did, where Donovan Jones can run well enough and have good enough play recognition to be a deep safety when it's called on, but really being that hitter in the box, that enforcer over the middle. I think of Donovan Jones as more of that physical type of defensive back than maybe the explosively athletic one. Really good athlete for his size. I just think him on an island at corner doesn't always go the way Nebraska wants it to. I would move Donnie Jones into the box. I think he can be a good piece for Nebraska if he's in the right role. I'm not sure that's outside. And then a guy like Cam Lenhart. I remember him coming in as a freshman, and the coaching staff raved about him. He's so mature. He's wise beyond his years. Going to threaten for playing time. This is a guy that, can lead the locker room, got a great head on his shoulders, can be a key piece of what it is that we want to accomplish. Cam Lenhart hasn't really put up numbers. Promising freshman year, not much going on as a sophomore last year, and a fine junior year. He was out there. I kind of view Cam Lenhart in that, Jamari Butler type role, maybe an MJ Sherman type role, where he's not Caleb Tanner by the end of his career. He's not going to kill you when he's out there. I don't know if he's a ceiling raiser as much as he is a floor raiser, and that's fine. You need floor raisers, right? You need guys that, as we saw far too often, didn't happen this year for Nebraska, are going to be in the right place at the right time, completing their assignment, executing. There's that buzzword. I think Cam Lenhart can be that guy. I don't know if there's a breakout season in Cam Lenhart, but I do think that Nebraska can be a better defense with the steadiness that he brings and the occasional splash play there in the interior, right? Riley Van Poppel, we'll see what the future holds for him. Wasn't really impressed. Made a nice play tonight with some help from his other interior defensive linemen at times, but a lot of talk around Riley Van Poppel in the offseason. Whether that was warranted or not, either way, the stats didn't back up the conversation and the chatter. I'd like to think there's a good player in there with a frame, but maybe Riley Van Poppel is the new Ty Robinson, where it takes a few years to click, and then you really see the growth happen. Nebraska can't afford to wait till year 4, year 5, or in Ty Robinson's case with the COVID year 6, to get impact from these guys. These are guys that, especially on the lines, offensive and defensive, you want to be able to sit for a year to learn the system, get the body right, all that good stuff, work them into the rotation maybe after their redshirt year. They're playing, every down or, a majority of the snaps in their second year. And then by their third year, you've seen enough from them that you're like, okay, we know what this guy is. We know what he can be. And we think that there's a potential leap that he can take. That's got to be the formula for Nebraska. You don't have 4 years to wait necessarily. And that's where, as we go back to that piece about development, Corey and Lincoln brought it up. Jeremy, you talk about just how young Nebraska's roster is and has been. 19-19 through 3 years for Matt Rule. He's right. It's better now than when he left or when he took over. It is. Nebraska's won more games. Nebraska's been to more bowl games, and that's not nothing. But this can't be it. And you would think that if this was no doubt headed in the correct direction, if there was a rock solid plan in place, that you would have potentially seen more signs of it. But with the talent that Matt Rule had or didn't have in year one, and the mess that he says he still had to clean up and is really just getting squared away this year. With the Dylan Raiola saga, I think it's fair to call at this point, is that what Matt Rule wanted to do? Or is it what he had to do? Is it what he felt obligated to do? Was Dylan Raiola part of the plan? And if so, whose idea was it to get Dylan Raiola to campus? Nebraska didn't maximize Dylan Raiola. Dylan Raiola wasn't the best player he could be at Nebraska. I think that's very fair to say. But it's also fair to say because Dylan Raiola didn't fit the mold of the other guys Matt Rule had at the quarterback position. Whether it was Jeff Sims, whether it was Heinrich Harburg, whether it was Chubba Purdy or TJ Lateef now. What all four of those guys have is the ability to use their legs consistently. Dylan Raiola was far and away the highest rated of those guys and far and away the least mobile. He didn't fit what Matt Rule was talking about. You can't say no, but can you make a tough choice? It didn't seem like Matt Rule did. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too. I can't say Matt Rule sold his soul or made the wrong decision, but I think the Dylan Raiola data point is one that says, hey, this is a guy that had a plan, threw it out the window, and now is trying to rediscover it. Same thing on defense, right? Tony White's defenses weren't bad. Pretty darn good, in fact, in the first 2 years. It just left you wondering, what if they could get another playmaker or two? What if they could get a rush end that can help Nebraska win when they only rush 4? What if Nebraska can get a rangy linebacker that can cover from side to side and create turnovers? What if Nebraska can get that sticky corner to blanket opposing number ones? What if Nebraska has a ball-hawking safety that can cover the deep areas of the field and erase mistakes when their outside corners get beat? Tony White's scheme was having success. Nebraska seemed like it was a piece or two away from having not just a top 15 defense, but a top 10 and potentially top 5 defense in the entire country if it could get another piece or two to make plays. But instead of continuing to give Tony White the chance to build, recruit those players, Matt Rule moved on because he liked what John Butler was selling him. And then after 1 year, John Butler's out the door. So entering year 4, Nebraska will be on defensive coordinator number 3, full-time defensive coordinator number 3. I'm not counting the Phil Snow interim tag and defensive play caller from tonight as a real full look as a defensive coordinator. When you make changes, it's got to be with a purpose. It's got to be as part of a plan. If something isn't working, you identify that it's not working and you understand why it's not working. It's not a panic move to make a change. But when you think something's not working or you're not willing to give it enough time or you didn't think it through enough to begin with and now you've got to pivot, that's where it feels like in some cases Nebraska football has gotten caught up in a whirlwind. Changes, sure, probably need to be made. But for what reason? For what purpose? What does Nebraska hope to accomplish? That's the question that I think needs to face Nebraska as it weighs a bunch of decisions entering 2026. If there are more changes to be made on the coaching staff in terms of additions or subtractions, if there are more moves to be made in recruiting, whether that's high school, transfer portal, or retention, if there are moves to be made in what practice looks like or what the offseason plan looks like, why is the reason for the change? Is it just to switch it up because you're not sure? Or is it to switch it up because you know there's something better out there? You can't make a move just to make a move. You also can't not make a move because you're not sure it's going to work out. I love what Jay says about football. You got to love the game without any guarantee that it's going to love you back. Sometimes it's the same in making changes. If you know something's not working because you've tried it for 3 years, okay, long enough, something's got to change. If you try something for 1 year, like John Butler or for one full season now in Dana Holgerson, if you're going to make a change, whether it's in personnel or in philosophy, you got to make sure it works. You can't stick with someone just because you paid them. Sunk cost fallacy is a real thing, right? You can't just hold on to someone because you're paying them. But you can't also just pay someone in hopes that it works out. Plain and simple. Let's head back to our starter at Heyman Jewelers text line as we start drawing things to a close. Scott and Firth, who gives a crap about the hat? The problems in this program run so much deeper than a freaking hat. Again, Scott, we get it. We admitted as much, but it's not about the hat. There can be a deeper message embedded in it, and it's about what the hat can represent, what it means, and the messaging around it. I thought we did a pretty good job of explaining that. Isaac, he's good at social media and such, but he switched that hat around before shaking hands with the opposing coach. The hat is like our team, no identity. Jim says Mike Riley was coming off winning seasons from Bo Pelini. Matt Rule is coming off horrible losing seasons from Scott Frost. Riley was spiraling downward where Rule is building it up. That's all fair. That's all correct. It's true. I can't argue with that. And I can even understand Matt Rule's perspective when he says things are better now. I mean, we've been to back-to-back bowl games. They've won 6 games in the regular season, 7 games in the regular season. They've improved by a win each year. Expectations are just that. Expectations and predictions are just that. None of us are Nostradamus. We don't know what the future holds. We can give our best guesses. We can look at the data from the past. We can project out to the future. But until Nebraska straps it up 12 times in the regular season and hopefully a 13th in a bowl game like they did today, nothing's guaranteed. Nothing is for sure. And Matt Rule's right. The program does seem like it's more talented than it was when he initially took over. They have won more games in 3 years than his predecessor did. That's all true. Fan expectations can be optimistic. That's also true. But I think that if you're going to say, well, Nebraska hasn't made as much progress as expected or as much progress as it could have, that can also be correct. That can also carry a lot of weight. Because if Nebraska is really as talented as we think it is, then yeah, there were some absolutely inexplicably disappointing losses or lack of ability to finish. Was Michigan really a 3-point game? I don't know, but it ended up that way. Was Nebraska talented enough to flip 3 plays in that game? Was Nebraska talented enough to flip 3 plays against USC and find ways to win that one? If Nebraska has even one more of those wins, I think our tone is very different, even after a game like this, even if it goes the same way and Nebraska ends up in the same position. But Nebraska didn't win those games. And Nebraska didn't show up tonight. And Nebraska didn't use the month that it had off to stew on Iowa after Penn State before it, after kind of squeaking by UCLA and not dominating, after letting one slip against USC, after playing with fire against Maryland, Northwestern, and Michigan State, after blowing an opportunity against Michigan in the first marquee game of the season. Nebraska had all season to look at what went wrong to get better. Maybe they did behind the scenes in incremental ways. Again, having not been in the building, I don't know. But what I do know is that it was still a 1-3 November, which is still the high water mark under Matt Rule. For a guy that came in saying we're going to dominate fourth quarters, we want to rush for 75 yards, we want to outscore opponents in the fourth, we're going to be built for it. Even if you take the last third of the season, the last month of November, or you take the last 3 games of November for the last quarter of the season to be analogous to the fourth quarter of any game, Nebraska is not better down the stretch in games or down the stretch in seasons. And it all came to a head today where you can talk yourself into, yeah, Utah was clearly better. Why are we surprised by this? Nebraska wasn't very good. Look at all the moving parts. Nebraska was in disarray. It's no surprise that they surrendered a Las Vegas Bowl record of total yards to a single player in Devin Dampier. It's no reason that Nebraska, no surprise that Nebraska allowed the most yards of the Matt Rule tenure. Look at everything going on. It's no surprise that Nebraska, could only muster 22 points against, middle of the road defense in Utah because they're starting a guy in just his 4th career game. All of that can be true. But what I believe to my core is also true is that Nebraska could have done more about it, or Nebraska should have been able to do more about it. It should have felt different, even if the result is the same. it should have felt like Nebraska left more out on the field, that Nebraska was playing harder than Utah. Maybe Nebraska was always outgunned. Maybe Nebraska was always outmanned. Maybe Utah's better coached and more talented. That can be true. But was there any reason for Nebraska not to match the effort and energy level of Utah? No, that's a choice. That's a mentality thing. Was there any reason for Nebraska to back down and shy away from contact toward the end of Iowa? Was there any reason for Nebraska not to come in with its head held high and play hard and not let Penn State run all over it? There's no reason. Was there any reason that Minnesota should have snowballed and spiraled the way it did to one of the most deflating losses, and that's saying something, of the decade for Nebraska? Maybe the last, not just 2020s, but the last 10 years. Where's the pride in this program? Where's the belief in the process? Where's the focus on the process that manifests in results? Where are we seeing the process come to fruition under Matt Rule through 3 seasons? I think it's a fair question to ask. Back to our starter Heyman Jewelers text line we go. Dan from Canopy. Things are not better. Optics and perception say it's not good football. Certainly it was not good football tonight. Kevin in Southwest Lincoln, Nebraska's defense is garbage and the offense stinks. This Husker team is no better than Frost's 2021 team that finished 3-9. There's no improvement. And echoes a sentiment from before. The Husker football program continues to bring down a successful athletic department. I can appreciate what Matt Rule is saying when it comes to process-oriented. I think that's a great way to go through life. The more you do the right thing, the more the right thing will happen. The more you go about your business correctly, the more you take care of yourself and you're buttoned up, the more likely good things are to happen to you in your workplace, in your personal life, whatever it is. To a point. Does it feel right now like Matt Rule believes in his own process? Does it feel right now like Nebraska believes in Matt Rule's process? Is there alignment? Is there vision? Are there 105 players? Are there, let's say, 15 coaches? Are there 30 assistants and analysts all pulling in the same direction with conviction? Is there faith that this is going to work? Or is it just hope? Because, dear listeners, hope is not a strategy. You have to have faith that what you're doing is going to work. I don't sense the faith from inside that football building that this process is working, which is why we get stuff like the backwards hat, which is why we get, shout out to Arbitrary Analytics on Twitter for this, which is why we get Nebraska with one of the worst 3-game stretches in terms of point differential of the 2000s. How about this? The Huskers' negative 73 point differential over its last 3 games is the worst since the 2018 Wisconsin game, after the Huskers lost by a combined 77 to Michigan, Purdue, and Wisconsin over a 3-game stretch there in 2018. That was after Scott Frost believed the Michigan game that year was rock bottom. In year 3 of Matt Rule, Nebraska had its worst 3-game stretch by point differential since its previous head coach declared it to be rock bottom. Is Nebraska climbing out of the hole or digging it deeper? 2026 will have a lot to say when it comes to that conversation. Friends, it's been a fantastic year here at The Ticket. From everyone at the station, thank you so much for making what we do possible, including on the Jay Foreman Postgame Show. Vinny Krikak of State Farm, call him today, 402-474-1173. Including Anderson Ford of Lincoln. Visit them at 27th and I-80 or 33rd and Yankee Hill, including Baumgars. They're throughout Nebraska, located here in Lincoln at 56th and Cornhusker Highway. Big thanks to everyone that made our bowl trip possible, for getting DP, Jake, and Nick out to Vegas, and hopefully back to Vegas sooner than later. Bunch of great sponsors making that possible. MWR Building and Fence, Ben Blake, Professional Realty Group. You're also looking at Amigos Kings Classic and Advanced Medical Imaging. Ticket family, from the bottom of my heart, it's been a blast in 2025. Looking forward to a great 2026 of discussion, of argument, of bickering, and hopefully of Husker success. For 2025, this is Austin Norman signing off for The Ticket. We'll talk to you next year.
When it comes to keeping your equipment running, you've